Welcome to Where's the Any Key, a podcast about all things geeky and nerdy in nature. Join us, your hosts, Ivan and Adam, as we dive into today's topic. Today we'll be talking about emotional attachments to video games and what they mean to us. We'll be taking a look at games such as Alundra and the Legend of Zelda. So sit back, grab your favourite snack and drink, and join us on Where's the Any Key. Well, hey there! Today we are talking about our emotional connections to video games, and there's going to be a fair bit to talk about this, so grab your tissues and settle in for taking a bit of trip down memory lane. This is sort of an episode we're going to be focusing on sort of the connection that we have, particularly obviously when we're kids playing video games, and just why games mean so much to us and what particular games mean so much to us. So we've got a few games. We've got 3 games each we're going to sort of focus on or highlight, and then we'll just see how the conversation goes from there. Sound good, Yvonne?
Sounds great, Adam. Sounds great.
Cool. All right. Well, over to you first. I reckon I want to hear about your first sort of emotional game. What do you feel connected to?
Thank you kindly. Right now, I feel connected to this hazy pale ale called Wolf of the Willows. Pup, apparently. That's what I'm drinking. So,
nice.
To all our listeners out there, hopefully you can crack open a fresh one. And yeah, likewise, Adam, feel free to join me.
Yeah. Sorry. What say the name again? What was it?
Wolf of the Willows. Pup.
Where's this brewed? And what type of beer?
Well, it says it's a hazy pale ale, so I'm guessing some kind of IPA. Meet the Wolf Pup. Your wingman, your co-pilot, your new best mate. This crisp and easy drinking hazy pale ale is light on the malt, a little hazy, with the perfect amount of fruity hops to round out this smashable beer. Family owned and operated since 2014, brewed and canned by Wolf of the Willows, Mordialec, here in Vic.
Mordialec. There you go. Never heard of it. How's it tasting?
It's definitely fruity, very very hoppy and fruity.
Yeah. To your liking, or
yeah? It's if you've tasted one APA, you've tasted them all.
Yeah, that's right. It's hard to find a real distinctive one, or one that you can really connect with, eh?
Exactly.
I'm actually drinking because I've caught up with a mate. I was mentioning before we jumped onto the podcast recording. Caught up with a mate today, and we just had good old Carlton draft at the pub. But then I've switched. I actually had my sister over here about a month or so ago, and she had some of her friends over for drinks, and they left some of their ciders. So I've actually cracked a cider. So it's called was it Mr. Finch Premium Apple Cider, and this one is blah blah blah. James product of Australia, produced for James Bubsy. Fine Wines and Spirits. In Toorak Road, Hawthorne East. So there you go. Vegan friendly, might I add.
Vegan friendly, ooh.
There you go. But it's actually not bad. It's quite a tasty.
Really?
It's not too. Some ciders can get pretty tart, but especially the apple. But this one's going out pretty smooth. It's quite nice.
Yeah, I do find that. Some ciders can get way too tart, and after like 3 or 4, you're like, oh, do I really want to continue?
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, diving into it. So emotional attachment to games. And I guess everyone who sort of grew up from our generation, and we're talking, 80s kids, has a fond memory of one game or another. And even now, I think that a lot of games can have a very deep and meaningful influence in your life. I know I've spoken to a few people who've played certain games and sort of been able to reevaluate certain aspects of their life. Because aside from these being stories, they're also, oddly enough, lessons in a way. And yeah, look, I'm sure the more comical and smart ass of us can turn around and be like, yeah, Sonic, that good old Sonic lesson, gotta go fast. And obviously make light of it. But the reality is, I've met a lot of people who have such strong feelings towards certain games, some for good and admittedly some for bad. um, and and I find it interesting. I genuinely do. Um,
Is
and
it sorry to interrupt, is it kind of
mm,
like talking like, it sounds like you're talking fairly broad there, like it can be not only because of course we find games fun, but they can also be certain moments in your life when you're playing video games with what's going on emotionally in your own life, like bad times, good times, etc. Is that kind of what you're getting at, or?
absolutely, absolutely, yes. But also, I guess the reception around certain games, and to a lesser extent, not that I want to get into the politics of fan bases and communities, but I've noticed as well that certain people feel very strongly about certain genres and certain types of games as well.
Mm,
Not to delve too much into it, I remember once, uh, long ago, when I entered the workforce, I a few friends of mine said, "Hey, listen, after work, we're gonna have a few drinks, get some food, and hit a land cafe." And I thought, "Oh, okay, cool." And then said, "Look, do you want to come along? Like, what are you guys going to be playing?" And I remember one of them saying, I think League of Legends or HON, I can't remember, Heroes of New Earth, I think it might have been Heroes of something.
wasn't Heroes
Um,
of the Storm?
no, it was HON, HON. So
Okay.
I can't remember what it was. The N stood for, but they're your sort of Dota MOBA style
Yep.
games. Which, look, I am the first to admit I suck at them. I don't get the actual gameplay. I get the mechanics, I get the concept, I get the idea of it. And so, off the cuff, I kind of turned around and I said to my friend at the time, and again, we were in an office with a few other people, and there was just one of these guys who was not necessarily part of the friend group per se. He was an acquaintance of the friend group who we'd met at that workplace, and he got along, and he was sort of, associated with that group. Um, I remember saying off, just off the cuff comment, "Oh, nah, man, I hate those games. I suck at them. I hate them." Um, so I said, "No, I'm not really interested." You would think I'd, you know, slapped his mother and spat on his grandparents' graves.
Yeah, yeah,
With the reaction this guy had,
yeah.
he turned around and he chewed me out for it, and he said, "You can't say that, to somebody who loves these games." I'm like, dude, for starters, you know, give me a couple of feet here. And
Yeah, yeah,
secondly, like, relax. I
yeah.
mean, I'm not saying you can't play them. I'm not saying that you can't enjoy them. I don't see the point in these games. I could possibly not enjoy them to the extent or the way you guys can. So
See, the way I think there is that he's got some emotional connection to that, and it may be what you're getting to. But my immediate thought there is that he's probably using that as like a crutch. It could, I'm not saying addiction or anything, but it could be some escape for him that's he's held very dear, that he's just using to escape something else. And maybe that's like, it's a bit of a, you may be saying that could be attacking some insecurity with him and going, well, equating your choices in games to me being a bad person. It's like, well, no, I'm just not into that style of game.
and exactly right. And again, like I said prior, not to touch onto fan bases and all that, and not to get into that politics or set of politics. It's something I learned, I guess, from that experience. I walked away learning that eh, people do have emotional attachments to games and game genres, and you're right. He was probably going through a certain time in his life where that game was some form of either release or comfort to him, and me making that judgment obviously made him feel um, personally attacked, and I guess from that, really, and I guess I encourage a lot of people, really, and not to get psychological or be somebody who's giving out advice, is the best anyone can really do in situations where their choice of game is being criticized or whatever is not take it to heart,
Mm.
because you really don't create fans of a genre or a particular group if you know if your first reaction is to um criticize anyone who kind of criticizes your your choice in games.
Mm.
And again, I'm not trying to sound, like some sort of psychologist or wise person. It's just really, I personally would feel, if well, in that situation, it definitely didn't make me love any of those MOBA style games. So, and I still don't like them to this day.
Do you think so? You think that had a bit of an impact on you actually trying them out because of that interaction, or?
Oh no, it just sort of reaffirmed. I did try them out again. I did try League of Legends years later because funnily enough, I did speak to another young man about League of Legends, and the love he had for it was astounding. So it made me really jump back into it. But I found that it wasn't really my cup of tea. I wasn't getting enjoyment from the gameplay. I found it
Yeah,
either, I think it was too repetitive for me, or it was just, yeah, I did find it
didn't
enjoyable.
click. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I've
yeah.
I've never actually properly tried any of the MOBAs, but I took a look at it and I just thought, oh, that doesn't look fun. Just that takes me a little bit to. I have to set my mindset on a way at looking at a game to give it a go, and that's
Mm,
that's totally on me. It's not, to some point, like I can pick up some games and immediately just click with them. And there's one I'm going to be talking about later in the podcast that's done
mm,
that to me. But um, there are others that I just have a quick glance at and won't play. Like I don't know, maybe let's say pro golf or let's say the Madden NFL games. Like I'm not interested. Don't really like the sport. I'm not interested in playing that type of a game.
mm,
Um, Mind you, as a kid, I'd play anything. Like I got into a NHL game when I was a kid, and I loved it. And I mean, hadn't really had any interest in hockey, and yeah, really loved that game. And now I've got a passing interest in it. I watch like highlights on YouTube, and the good old fights where they get on the fisticuffs on the ice and whatnot. But I'm going to America in April next year, and I've said to my mate, I'd really like to go along and check out a hockey game if I can. I don't know if it's on at that time of year. It's in April, but I have to suss that out still. But
mm,
I guess my point is there are those games when you're a kid, anything you'd play. There's also different. It's a bit hard then because I mean back then you didn't have as much choice as you do these days, and now like MOBAs when they started becoming a thing, there was so much choice out there, and I mean I just started jumping into just different games in the same sort of style of games that I'd like that I've got enough to last me a lifetime. I don't really need to see that, but part of me has always been curious. Like, I wonder what that would be like in some way. But I have a quick look at it, glance maybe at the page, maybe a few YouTube videos, maybe watch a Twitch stream, but then I'd quickly just sort of nope out. And actually, you talk about the fandom, like particularly with League of Legends, like one of the most toxic fandoms out there apparently, and it's just all the
I've
all the
heard.
word you hear about it. Yeah, so I just sort of like, I might just avoid that. So there you
Yeah,
go.
no, no, no. You are right, and well, I guess diving into the emotional aspect of these connections to these games, I understand that a lot of it is competitive, especially now these days where we do have those e-sport, competitions or leagues, if you will. Um, Whereas I guess while we were growing up, we always heard that the same story. And I'm again talking about my '80s, brethren here, and yeah, I'm sure all of us heard that from our parents from time to time, where, oh, you're not going to make a living playing video games. You're not going to, you're not going to make money playing video games and blah, blah, blah. Whereas now, I mean, you do have those wide competitions, those worldwide competitions, either, fighting games or like Splatoon, I guess what, team shooters or like Overwatch. And I feel that because of that, you do have that generation, or at least um, that group of people who kind of do want to aim for it to be something competitive, or they have that emotional um, drive to try and be the best in I guess in that genre of game or team sport, if you will. For them, it genuinely is a team sport. Like, you know, I guess people going to, uh, you know, amateur AFL leagues or baseball leagues or whatever the case may be. You have these esport amateurs, and again I use the word amateur in with all respect to a lot of these players out there. Compared to the obviously the big pro leagues or whoever makes it big, whatever team is big at the moment. So I guess that's where their emotional attachment comes. They could probably consider themselves, people who put so much hours and effort and time and I guess sacrifice so much to be considered semi-pro or somebody who wants to jump into the pro leagues. So
Mm.
I guess that for them, there's that emotional drive or that emotional attachment. It's this isn't just a game for me. This is potentially my chance at the big shots or the big leagues to make money and not have to do any other thing.
Mm.
Um, so I do understand that as well.
Yeah,
But I guess. Mhm.
So for me, it's like you talk about, when parents or when anyone else you're speaking to about games and why you're doing that thing. For me, it was initially like, you're not going to get anywhere doing that. It wasn't necessarily about money, but you just what are you doing wasting your life doing that? And it took me quite a while to resolve that, especially from your peers, because you do look up to them, and then when they're saying why you're wasting your time doing that, but then once you get a bit older and a bit wiser, you look around and you go, well, you're sitting there on the couch watching TV, garbage TV, might I add. No, speaking of experience here, some of what my parents and my friends' parents have watched. And I'm like, well, what's the difference? I'm actually interacting with my medium. Like I'm doing, and again, that's a bad path to go down, trying to compare and, one up,
Mhm.
so to say, and someone else. But I
But.
basically got to a point now. This is actually one of the points I was going to make, because we did talk about having three games in particular we're going to
Mhm.
talk about, but then talk this and about the other. And mine are pretty much one from one series, but one thing I wrote down in particular I wanted to talk about, which was coming to terms with being okay with me just doing pretty much gaming nonstop. Like I mean, I've still got, I still do the things that are, expected, sort of normal, I guess, in society, which is I've got a job, I still catch up with friends, I still go out and see people, catch up with people like yourself, of course, and a lot of my other
Mhm.
friends. I still do that stuff, but in my spare time, I really like to game, and I typically don't sit down and watch TV shows or movies. So when, yeah, you come to those conversations and you're catching up with your friends, like, oh, what have you been watching, or what movies have you seen? I'm like, well, nothing really. I've just been playing games. And they're like, oh, okay. And it can be hard with some of my friends to talk about that because they're not into games as much. But it's taken me a long time to get to a point that I'm happy. I'm now comfortable with sitting down and I'm just going to buy 5 games this month, and I'm just going to sit here and play them all, and that's okay.
No, that's brilliant. And like you said, yes, there can be that aspect where you're kind of, and again, I don't see you as being defensive. I see you as uh, have being someone who's very logical and somebody who basically is telling it as it is. You are a gamer, and we are of that generation. I mean, goodness, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Mega Drive, Nintendo 64, GameCube, Sega Saturn, Dreamcast, PlayStation. We saw the rise of the PlayStation dynasty, the rise of the Xbox dynasty. We saw the Sega and well, not so much Nintendo, but the Sega legacy sort of fall into obscurity. We grew up in the arcades, um, so for me, you're right. To me, a lot of these games are a medium of storytelling, and they're an interactive part of it. Someone once said, "Why don't video game movies always work as well?" And it's because they say, "Look, we're telling the same story." But someone, I can't remember who it was. It was, I think, a YouTuber. But someone turned around and said, "Well, it's because you're interacting with the medium, so there's a different form of connection. There's a different emotional investment as you would to a movie.
Mm.
With a movie, you're an observer. With a video game, you're an actual player, or you're a character in the story who has more involvement, and there's more engagement. Um, and Matt Pat from the Game Theorist channel, someone I've been watching since I think the beginning of his channel in 2012. Um, he says something that I really and truly appreciated, and he's a bit of an advocate. And again, not to get into any form of politics, and again, not us against them, none of that really. I know we're talking about emotional connections to not just I guess certain games, but also I guess video gaming as a culture and as a nerd culture. He kind of talks about how why is it that all other nerd aspects seem to be accepted and appreciated, but when it comes to video games, there's such a barrier. You know, there's a form of having to always prove ourselves as a what's
Are
the
you
word?
playing with toys?
Yeah, as an established forum for stories, because
Yeah.
he does call out not is it Jimmy Kimmel? No, Jimmy Kimmel. Um,
It's one of the talk show hosts and the stars.
yeah,
Yep.
Jimmy Fallon is the one that was on SNL, right? The one that used to
Yeah.
laugh a lot. Yeah, okay,
Fallon's
so
the
it's
one that
Jimmy
laughs
Kimmel.
at everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Kimmel, because Kimmel is openly come out and attacked a lot of gamers. You know, spoke
Yeah.
about how basement dwelling fat people. Yeah, he neck beards and all that sort of stuff. He kind
Sure,
of
isn't that
makes
just one of his jokes, like take the piss sort of thing? Or
he's some people would say it is a joke. Other people's would be like, well, you know, how many times can you keep coming out and basically saying, you know, who cares about these people? You know, your opinions don't matter. And
Mm.
the thing about Matt Pat is, and truly, genuinely, his approach to it, he was right. You know what? Stop the hate mail. Like, there's no point sending him hate mail. He kind of feeds off that. He was just like, let's prove to him in a very adult and very, you know, diplomatic manner that gamers are a valid and um, serious medium to tell stories. That, you know, we're not just a kid's plaything. We are our own forum, as it were. And
Yeah.
he's a very strong advocate for that. In fact, I think when he met the Pope, the opportunity to meet the Pope, he actually gave the Pope, I think, a copy of Undertale, and he said,
No,
"Look, a
no
lot of
way.
no, he did, and
That's awesome.
and he said, look, a lot of people laugh at me and everything, but he said the reason I
That's
did
so
it
cool. Yeah.
was because you know I wanted to show him that there's a story in this, you know, that you know, these
Yeah.
mediums of the. So yeah, look, I mean, I have no I've got no belief that Matt Pat will ever know even about this, but if he does, because he's got such a huge channel and following now, if he does,
Yeah.
look, as somebody, one of your fans, Matt Pat, keep doing what you're doing, man. Great work.
Nice. Shout out to Matt Pat.
And yeah, and dude, it's been awesome watching you grow from, you know, 2012 channel to what you are now, you know, with a wife and kid and having a starring role in the FNAF movie. So, dude,
He's in that.
keep, yeah,
Cool.
yeah, look, keep fighting the good fight, man. Keep doing it for us gamers.
Yeah, nice.
um,
Yeah, well, I suppose, yeah, for me, it's I'm at the point where I don't really care what others think. Like,
mm.
it is funny. Like, there's one podcast I listen to, and they call actors adult pretenders because that's what they are. I love that because a lot of actors, like, part of me is kind of like I kind of want to keep gaming separate from all of that, of any of the sort of the snobbery of the other arts, because they can get a bit up themselves, really. Like, a lot of the actors talk more than what they should. Like, just shut up and act, because that's what we like it for. And they come out and speak politics and speak all these, these grand things they're trying to support, and it's just like I don't really care. I just
it,
want to hear maybe more about your craft, about the characters you bring into life. That sort of stuff I love hearing. And that's what I find a lot of game companies do really well. And one thing, if we can talk about shout outs, I'm going to shout out
mm,
Double Fine, and I think it's I could be getting the name wrong. I'm not going to look it up while I'm recording, but I think it's Two Player Productions is the name of the company within, or the little team within Double Fine Studios. So Double Fine is the studio that did like Psychonauts. Tim
oh
Schafer
yes, yeah,
leads it.
yeah.
Yeah, they released, and if you haven't seen this, Ivan, and anyone else out there, I think it's called Psychonauts: A Psych Odyssey. So it's about the development of Psychonauts 2, and it also goes into the history, like a bit of the history of the studio and Psychonauts 1, and it's something like 30 episodes, and it's around like 30 hours. Like each one goes for about an hour, so it's a big haul. But I think I was talking to you earlier. I don't know if I mentioned this or maybe before it that I don't really. Well, no, I want just before. I don't really mention. I don't really watch a lot of things. It's more playing games, but I sort of was. I'm also interested in learning about how games are made and seeing how the developers go about it. And this was one of the greatest pieces of media, if we're talking about art, that I've seen. It's an incredible documentary. I cried multiple times throughout it. It's a
That's
great
amazing.
human. It's a human story. Just that they're all humans doing their thing, and they've all got characters who are real, but you sort of like can connect to them and see what they're up to in the next episode. And I guess to bring back to my point was that I guess I've sort of kind of lost it, but it's more I sort of enjoy the medium for what it is, and I don't really need to look for any external validation anymore. Like it was a thing where I used to think like I feel guilty about playing games and spending my money on it, and talking to other people saying, when they say what are you up to and you're lying about it, I'll just tell them I've been playing these games, and if they want to talk about it, like I won't. I think previously I'd sort of start to shove it down their throat, like not in the sense of, oh, you need to check this out, but it's more like, oh, I've been playing. I'll just start nerding out like we do on this podcast, talking about it. Oh, I love this and I love that, but they just switch off and like, okay, good for you. So I'll just tell them I've been playing this. It's been fun. Yep, no worries. That's good. Great. Move on. And
Yeah,
so I guess but my point being is I don't really care what happens outside of, like, if people say this is an art, I'm like, okay, good on you. It still outdoes Hollywood. It outdoes movies every year in terms of
yeah,
revenue, gross revenue. It's absolutely destroying that industry in terms of that. Not that it's destroying in the sense of that Hollywood's dead, etc. That's another discussion, but it's doing fine by itself. It doesn't need anybody else, and we've got great communities here that love
we
talking
do.
geeky about it. So that's what's important to me.
No, you're right, and as you were saying, that connection to the creation of games and everything. I was watching another YouTuber. I have to find his channel. I forgot the name. Because it just came up on my feed. And he was analyzing from a musical perspective, the Green Hill Zone theme from
Ah,
Sonic One.
classic.
And he was just, and again, from the musical and theoretical side of things, he was just going off. And it's one of those things where I realized that, having played Sonic 1, 2, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic Pinball, I realized how integrated that song is. And I remember it being my ringtone for many years and again, showing our age, when phones all of a sudden could play actual music, like actual MP3s, as your
Mm,
ringtone.
mm.
That was my ringtone for many years, and my message sort of chime was the Sonic Ring chime.
Yeah,
So,
nice. Yep.
and yeah, it to me, it's still that song still plays in my head. Like it's such a you know iconic. You're beginning your adventure song.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
love it.
everything standy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. That's the same for me with like the Zelda side of things. But yeah, well,
And
yeah, go
yeah,
on.
I guess diving in,
Yeah, yeah. So
having
do you
been
want to
about
talk
it.
about? So what I want to know from you.
Hmm.
So we talk about, like, we sort of went off on a bit of a tangent there and in different directions, which I'm happy to do. Like, doesn't no rules in this sort of podcast and what we chat about, but I'd almost like to dive off and don't feel to be still you need to be stuck to the games themselves, but just feelings, because I'm more interested in hearing about your story. You have told me before, but it'd be good to reiterate your story with Alundra. You've told me about Alundra, this PlayStation game that I'd never even heard of, and even looking around trying to find a buyer copy so I could play it has been impossible. And I hate to say it, but I might have to, sail the seven seas to actually get a copy, which is honestly, to
Hint,
me,
hint.
is not
Yeah,
a bad thing to say, because it's good. We need to preserve games. I'm a big
absolutely.
proponent of, supporter of that. And but yeah, hearing this game Alundra from you, from one thing, just saying this is the game you should check out, to, oh, this has really special meaning to me, and that's kind of what I want to hear about. So tell me about
Yeah. No,
Alundra.
look. So coming out the gate swinging. Yeah. How should I put this? So it was during a time. Um, I think we'd just gotten a PlayStation back, and I think at this time PlayStation 2 was about to come out. Um, so for a few listeners that didn't know, when I was younger, I mean, like from ages I think 5 till about 10, 12, um, uh, I grew up on a Sega Mega Drive, Sega Genesis for our North American listeners, um, and we ended up getting the PlayStation, the first PlayStation, I think in 1996 when it first came out, um, or maybe 1997, might have been like a year later. We ended up buying it, and all of a sudden, wow, 3D graphics. And I think we only had like a couple of games. It might have Raiden might have been one of them, and I think maybe a Mickey Mouse,
Mm.
Castle of Illusions or something or
Oh,
other.
yep.
Even though I had it on the Sega,
Yep.
we also had it on the PS1, and it was wow, amazing. The graphics and everything. Um, and unfortunately, where we were living at the time, was not a particularly good neighborhood. And one night after coming back from doing grocery shopping with, parents, again, I would have maybe been 11 at most. Um, we, um, what's it called? We came home to a house having been broken into,
Mm.
and they had taken the Sega, or the Genesis Mega Drive, with about 50 games, and the
Mm.
PS with about 2, 3 games, I think.
Yep.
And yeah, and look, and due to financial circumstances and things, really, um, video games aren't necessarily a priority.
Mm. Yep.
So, for several years, we spent time without a console, and I kind of drifted away from video games at that point.
Yep.
And it wasn't until maybe 3, maybe 5 years later that we ended up getting another console. Um, and we ended up getting another PS1 and everything. And I remember for a birthday, I ended up getting some cash. And at that point, the Pokemon craze was just hitting
Mm.
shelves and stuff. And Pokemon Gold and Silver had just come out. And I remember a friend of mine had Pokemon Silver, and the Game Boy Color had just come out, or what I think was quite the in thing to have before the Game Boy Advance had come. I think Game Boy Advance was like maybe 2, 3 years away. Anyway, it was my birthday, and so with that extra cash, I decided to go shopping. And I remember I went out um, to like my local shopping center. I rode my bike, um, you know, and went there, and so I chained up my bike and went into the shopping mall. Um, and I looked around. I remember because we had Kmart and Target. Um, so I went into both stores and sort of compared the prices, and um, I knew that I wanted a Game Boy Color, and I knew that I wanted Pokemon Gold. But at the
Yep.
same time, I was like, okay, I've got 3 younger siblings. One of them will probably not be interested, but the other one will probably be interested, and I'll probably get harassed to share my Game Boy with them.
Yep.
You know, the plight of every big brother with any little younger sibling.
Yep.
Um, even though it's mine, even though I bought it.
Yep.
um, so I was like, okay, I need to get something that will keep everybody else interested, that won't harass me.
Yep.
And from a young age, I always had an interest in doing a little bit of extra reading. So, anytime we would go to a restaurant, I would read like the menu and actually read what was in the dishes,
Mm.
or read the manuals going home after you rented a game, or if it
Yeah.
had a manual, or you bought a new game, you would read the manual and get the
Yep.
story and get the controls down and everything. So by
Yep.
the time I picked up the control, I knew what I was doing and where I was heading.
Yep.
Um, and same with looking at the back of movies. You'd read the blurb and go, "Oh, okay, I know what this is about." Or like that interests me, or this doesn't interest me, and that way you always made like an educated guess. So I did that with games. Not only would I look at the little screenshots at the back, but I would read the story. So I went off to the PS section and looking through the games, and I feel a few things, and I saw this one game, and it was blue and had an anime looking character and had Alundra on it. And so I looked at the back, and I saw that it had like this, top down isometric view. Um, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yep.
Um, and so I read a little bit more, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's a bit of an adventure story. All right. Um, Mind you, prior to this, one of the games that we'd played and we were really attached to, which I guess might have influenced the judgment a little bit more, was on the Sega Mega Drive called um Wonder Boy in Monster World,
Oh yeah. Yep.
which
Know
funnily
of
enough,
it. Never played it, but
yeah,
yeah.
oh, look, very fun game, very fun
Yeah.
game, simplistic RPG, but very enjoyable.
Yeah.
When we were up to I think to the last level when everything got stolen,
Oh
so
no.
yeah.
Have you gone back to finish it?
Yes, yeah. Since
Yeah.
since then,
Nice.
yes, we have.
Redemption.
Um, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it sort of half influenced um the I guess the choice of picking up that game, because I think
Because
one of the screenshots like had like I think the character swinging, and it has like this very short arc of
yep.
swing. So the
Yep.
character as the old Sega Mega Drive game did.
Mm.
So I picked it up and I thought, okay, this will keep them busy. That way I can go off to my, and I picked up myself a packet of batteries and I said, all right, I'm gonna sneak off to my room and be able to play this all I want, and no one's gonna harass me, and um and I'll give them this game and they can play that. So I did that. I sort of plugged it in and let them sort of play. I'm like, oh, this is for you guys. And I went off and sort of opened up my Game Boy and read all the instructions and put it all together. And you know, and funnily enough, the second game I was going to say that I have such an emotional attachment to is Pokemon Gold. Um, but I will get into that in a moment.
Yep.
Um, so yeah,
So sorry,
and
take a step back because yeah. So obviously, Wonder Boy was the sort of the drive
precursor.
to
Yeah.
yeah to get it. So were you reading any of the like? I mean, how old were you? And were you reading any of the gaming magazines at the time, or it was more just
No,
you're
no,
just
no,
straight to the games? I just
straight
want
to
to
the
read.
games.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, I was very very lucky in that aspect. I wasn't really spoiled. Um, and again, I guess really for the money constraint and stuff, growing up in a family of six and everything, you don't really have the I guess the luxury to be like, oh, I want this magazine and all that sort of stuff. It was sort of right, what are the important things? Food, electricity, clothing, schools,
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, so I really didn't pay attention much to the game, and then sort of one thing that my dad used to really do, he would play games, and oddly enough, we would all sit around and watch, and it would be engaging to the story because it was something we would all do, and most of the time, when my dad would get tired, he would give me the controller to continue on and do stuff
Yep.
because I don't know, I think I was the most dexterous out of my siblings at that point. So
Yep.
we ended up playing this story, and I mean, not to get too much into it, but we did go through a few hard times. There were a few things that we had to sort of live through, unfortunately, due to circumstances and everything. But that game came to represent sort of the happy moments, the real sort of where here was a family, and despite not being able to maybe like take a trip overseas again, or not able to go interstate for travel, or or whatever, they were the moments that we came to cherish because it was all of us as a family sort of sitting around watching this game and going through the story. And not to spoil anything, but the story itself is actually quite emotional.
Mm.
um so I know I spoke earlier about how having a certain connection to games, and it can cause people to react in certain ways. One of the things that actually does bug me And this is nothing that I take away from the Zelda franchise, as I do respect the Zelda franchise quite a bit, as well as the fan base.
Mm,
Um, in fact, it was the fan base who made me fall in love with the games.
mm.
um, it is the fact that they call Alundra a Zelda clone or a Zelda homage
Yep.
when it really isn't in the aspect. It's an adventure game. It's an RPG. So
Yep.
yes, there is those I guess those same elements that
Yep.
I feel that any good RPG would have. There's dungeons, there's bosses, there's uh weapons or tools for certain environmental hazards or environmental moments that you need them for. Like,
Mm.
you can't go to a certain area until you acquire a certain tool, and then you have to use that tool throughout that dungeon. And once you're done, they then can access newer areas in the overworld or in the world itself.
Yep.
Um, there's treasure chests. But yeah, it is this huge adventure, and it has this amazing um um what's the word, soundtrack to it. Like the actual song when you're out into the fields, when you leave the village for the first time and you're
Mm.
out into the fields exploring everything, is you can feel it and picture yourself in this sort of
Yep.
wind-swept plains with these towering mountains that are in view, that if you continue on, you'll find adventure. um
Nothing like a
and
good
yet,
overworld soundtrack.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what, it the game came to mean so much. Like, there are certain characters in it that you, again, I don't want to spoil too much, you become attached to,
Yep.
and for good reason, and there are events that happen in the story that you go, wow. And
Yeah.
it's
Cool.
so unassuming.
Yeah.
So I guess from a life experience, it came to mean a lot, because it was like, right, you know what, yeah, maybe we haven't got the biggest car, maybe we're not the richest family, um and I gotta admit, I was bullied as a teenager in high school, um but for a brief moment, there was this game that was a
An escape.
haven. Yeah, it was an
Yeah.
escape. It was a haven. It was, I was good at this game. And you're right. Look, I've spoken to so many people, and very few people have either played it or know about it.
Yeah.
It, and I feel like it came into my life at a very crucial moment. So to me, that game is very special. I
Kind of
always
feels
thought
like
to
your
my
game, right?
Yes,
Like,
it really
yeah.
does.
Like, this is the one, nobody else knows about it. This is my thing. This is part
Yeah,
of
I
part of
mean,
me. That's pretty cool to have.
and my brothers feel the exact same way about it. They love it to
Yeah.
death. Um, and again, look, we've played through it several times, and completed it 100%. And we when so much so that when we learned that there was a part two, or a second,
Yep.
or a sequel, and I say that with quotation marks,
Yep.
coming out, we went out and immediately bought it. Like, there was no if, ands, or buts. We were like, "Yep, taking this right now."
Yep.
Um, Turns out that
Of
it
course you would.
wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
Turns
a
out,
shame.
oh look, the game is so different. Like, there's
Yep.
no even mention of any of the original characters. I think there's mention
Wow.
of one character that is like one background character in the original game.
So it's a completely separate story, separate land, I'm guessing. There's even separate
Separate
gameplay? Like,
graphics.
was it a...
Yep, separate. Yeah. So that one's a 3D third person, sort of very Japanese style RPG, in the sense, not turn based, but in the sense more of it. Although maybe it did have some turn based RPG elements to it, but in the sense of comedy and pacing and story, it was very Japanese in that aspect.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Whereas Alundra was, I think, slightly more Western.
Yeah. It
Because
definitely has
it
that vibe. Like, I'm watching, of course, for people that are watching this will be able to see what I'm looking at. I'm actually looking at, and I'm probably just about to, before I do that, I'm going to click onto another video. So I pulled up like a full playthrough, but I've realized it's got a filter on it, I believe. So it don't think it actually looks like the the way it looked like originally, but it's really nice and clean looking, and it's
Brilliant.
good to chuck on here. But looking at it, I immediately see like you mentioned before, been people saying it's a Zelda clone. It just reminds me of Link to the Past. Like it's got that very Western vibe to it, but it
Yes.
sounds like it is a Japanese developer.
Yes, Japanese developer. I
Yep.
think it was Traveler's Tales, and I can't remember. There was one that had an owl. I forget the name of that developer
Mm.
or game studio. But so one of the gimmicks I can give out is, and I guess the beginning of the story is you're this elf boy, and yes, I know everyone's shouting, Link is an elf boy. Like yes, I know, a redhead elf boy who is traveling by boat to a town called Inoa,
Yep.
and and he's basically been told he's been called there. He's been called there because he's had a dream where this, like, I guess, being has told him to come there, but also there's a evil being that's sort of telling him to stay away. So he's like somehow being called to this town. It's not until you get to the town that, and again, not to spoil too much, that one of the residents recognizes your pointy ears and says, "Oh, you're from this particular tribe," which means you have the power to enter other characters' dreams.
Oh, cool.
So part of a lot of the gameplay is you going into the dreams of these other characters and saving them from these horrible nightmares that are plaguing them,
It's
which
awesome.
you find out is due to the big bad.
Bad,
So I get, yeah, the
bad
big
dude.
bad guy. Yeah,
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I, I won't give out too much as how
Okay.
things aspire, but he's got an involvement in that.
Yep.
And during which this, of course, is you kind of live in the town and you kind of do missions in and around the town, and sort of its surrounding areas, and it's so immersive. You get to see so much of different things, um, and obviously, um, you come across characters from the ship, and you also find a bar where, if you do certain tasks, you can gamble at the bar. There's like some gambling because there's like a secret passage to go gamble.
Hmm.
Um, and you can also get drunk, which is funny. Does makes your little character do funny things.
Yep.
So yeah, it was this game
Much more
that,
RPG. Yeah, it
yeah.
definitely does. And I mean, even watching some of the gameplay, mucking around with elixirs and things and jumping
Hmm.
in menus, but it's yeah, like you said, it's much more RPG focused. It kind of actually reminds me a little bit also of Secret of Mana. I don't know if you've played that one or seen that.
I've played a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, some people have said that, and it's one of those things as well where I would say, look, I don't see the secret as a Secret of Mana as a Link clone. Sorry, a Legend of
No.
Zelda clone. To me,
Mm,
it's its own thing, but it again has um, dungeons. It has
mm,
treasure chests. It has traveling. It has
mm.
story. So it to me, I see any good RPG has to have those elements.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
and
was there any many puzzles in Alundra, or is it? Because
oh,
I mean,
so many,
yeah, I've seen a
so many.
few here that are pretty cool. Like it's stuff that you don't even really see in A Link to the Past. Because I'm sort of like I'm
Yeah,
only comparing it for reference point because I've played through Link to the
no,
Past and love
absolutely.
that, and I'm like, oh, that was cool. Like he used the barrel to jump up onto the he's in one of the temples and there's a bunch of snake or
Mhm.
like worm things in this sand dungeon and he's fighting them again now. But
Yep.
he ended up like needing to get over this switch and he chucked a barrel on the ground, jumped on the barrel and jumped up onto the wall and over. I thought that
and
was
and
cool.
and there's a few things you can cheese. One of them as well is one of the levels is you're stuck in a, like, crypt dungeon,
Yep.
and in order to progress, there's this sort of word riddle that says that. So you read these certain tombstones,
Mm.
and and so you kind of have to find out the right order in which to read these tombstones in order to progress. So, like, one of them will be like, Mr. Red is the teacher of Mr. White, but Mr. White's wisdom came before Mr. Red's, and Mr. Blue, who taught Mr. Green, is actually Mr. White's disciple. And so you kind of have to read between the lines to actually go, oh, all right, so that means white, red, green, blue, and then whoever
Nice.
comes last. And
Yeah.
yet, and you do get like these items and extra stuff. Look, like I said, I don't want to spoil something behind the items because there's something behind them that makes it so significant and so powerful. Um, that you have to play it to understand.
Yep.
There's also um, like a fast travel that you will unlock eventually, and in order to unlock, so yeah, it. I guess that game has always felt like it came around during a particular moment in my life where not everything was great. Like I said, school wasn't
Mm.
always brilliant, and I guess just the hardships of life.
Yeah.
But it was a sanctuary. It was a relief from every day, and it was an adventure. Like I still feel that adventure.
Yeah, and
Um,
it sounds like it brought the family together too. Like you mentioned,
yeah,
you had that story about having that opportunity to buy the Game Boy with Pokemon and sit there in your room or sit there in a chair by yourself and having people hanging over your shoulder or having something you can play on the telly together, and especially with your dad playing games, you can all enjoy it together. So that's great.
yeah, that was it. It was like, I mean, I remember instead of watching TV at the time, we'd be like, actually, can we play a bit more? So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was really awesome, and I guess to anyone who hasn't played it, give it a shot. I mean, you
Yeah,
might like it, you might not, but if you like Secret of Mana, if you like A Link to the Past, I'm sure you'll love this. I'm sure you'll love the game.
yeah. I mean,
It's
I've been sitting here watching it and hearing you talk about it, and this looks so much fun. I really want to try this. Hopefully, I can get a copy.
brilliant.
Uh,
Yeah. So I guess before I dive into my next one, I'm gonna, you know, flip the script and ask you, what about what's your first one? What's the one that you have an emotional connection to?
Yeah, so I mean, like you talked about, talking about the stories about how you first really started connecting with games, and I was thinking actually just before thinking about it, and I mean, definitely had same challenges as you in terms of, well, I didn't, luckily enough, not to have anything pinched, but oh no, I have, but that was later on in life, but in terms of games and whatnot, but when I was a kid, I basically had an interest in computers very young, and I remember having a thing called an Amstrad. We may have had a Commodore 60, Commodore, I can't remember what it was now, but we had a couple of old computers, and then my folks saw that and eventually bought me a console, and the Master System was my first. So I don't really have too many fond memories there. Like love games. Like I played Sonic nonstop and whatnot.
Hmm.
But it wasn't really until I got my 64. In the last episode, I talked about Formula One World Grand Prix, and that was big for me, um, just because it was 3D graphics, and that was mind blowing with the instant replay and whatnot. Um, but there was another game that my mates were playing on the 64, and that was Super Smash Brothers. And we used to play that going over for sleepovers and whatnot. And oh god, love that game. And that was that was the thing I wanted to play, and I wanted to get better because of course my friends were beating me because they've both got copies of it, and they were just far better players than I was. I was just sort of mucking around. I used to be I used to play as Pikachu to annoy them. That ended up disconnecting my controller because it'd sit there with Pikachu's got an attack where you can just do this. I think it's like Thunder Shock or something like Thunderbolt, and he basically shoots out little bolts of lightning that skip along the ground on the level, so you could
Oh,
basically
brilliant.
sit them from a distance, and while they were fighting, you could sit there and just keep doing that to get their damage up, and then once their damage is up far enough, you could get over and do like a thunderbolt right in the middle of them and send them flying off the screen. And they used to hate that. They'd tell me not to do it. Oh, that's it. We're going to disconnect the controller. And okay, but I wanted to get better, so I asked my folks, like begged and pleaded, all I want for my birthday is Super Smash Brothers. Okay, we'll see how we go. Yeah, no worries. So came to my birthday, really excited. I could see there was a box that was a 64 game. It's like, oh my god, this is it, this is it. I opened it up and I saw gold on the box. I was like, oh, okay. Then there was a sword and a shield, and a big Zelda thing. I was like, oh, okay. well, thanks, and I had to. It was the good old like mum could clearly see I was disappointed. He was like, Dad was like, she got you a game, it's a game. I know it's not the one you're after, but it's a game. You just got to enjoy it. I'm like, oh
Gee,
yeah,
thanks.
all
Lee
right, yeah.
Carvello's putting challenge.
Yeah, exactly. You have selected. Yeah. It was exactly that. I was just so bummed. But after getting over that and thought, all right, I'll jump in and crack into it, and it's kind of like what you said with Alundra. It was like, oh my god, it's an adventure. It was Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and that's probably my
Wow.
first real special memory of playing an adventure in a video game, and um, it it just it just kept getting better as it went along. It just kept getting better, and I just couldn't believe it. And I didn't even care that I was almost like I do remember going over to mates to play Smash Brothers. I got bored mainly because I kept playing as Pikachu and they kept disconnecting me and telling me not to play. But I just remember sitting there thinking, oh, I could be home playing Zelda right now, and that's all I wanted to do.
Wow.
Um, and that kicked off my lifelong love of it, and I don't think there's too much I can say about. I mean, well, I suppose we could probably have a discussion about it because I mean, Zelda, unlike Alundra is interesting to talk about because it was something that's not really well known, and it was interesting hearing your take on it as someone who doesn't know about it. But I mean, have you played Ocarina of Time, or do you know enough about it to get an
I
idea
know
of it? Or
I know most things about it. I've watched I think a few people play through it, but again, um, kind of pitted out. I haven't seen the full playthrough. I don't know all the actual nuances, but I know enough. And I also played, I guess, I think maybe 20-30 minutes of the beginning.
oh yeah,
Um, so yeah, look, I guess from somebody looking from the outside in regards to the Zelda franchise, um, and again, like I said, I didn't get into Zelda until I think Breath of the no, not Breath of the Wild. It would have been Minish Cap, but
yep.
and then followed up with Breath of the Wild, and played a few older ones here and there. Um, the thing I guess I want to know is again, like I said, I've not played it myself, so I don't have that, I guess, emotional attachment to it. I guess really do tell me about the majesty of like of setting off on this adventure. What really drew you in? And I know a lot of people can turn around and say, "Oh, it's the greatest game ever" because they played it, and yeah, maybe for they have their own reasons. But from your perspective, what was the experience like? Going through this story. How old were you when you were going through the story of it?
Oh, so it was when it was released. So it was 98, I think it was released. So I would have been, what are we, 2023? I would have been, oh gosh, yeah, I can't remember now. Old age. Would have been probably around about 12-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, oh, hang on, no. Yeah, about that, around about 11, 12. It was the promise of the unknown, like stepping out and seeing something on the horizon and running to it and seeing what's going on here, and then stumbling into either an enemy or a cutscene all of a sudden that you're doing something. Of course, the brilliance of the design in this game was you would always had something there telling you where to go and what to do next. Because
Right. Yeah.
you did felt like you were lost, especially you take it for granted these days. Like I'm happy with a game like Breath of the Wild because it's just like there you go, off you go into the world and do your thing. And I mean that was honestly what Link to the Past was like as well. It wasn't very handholdy. It just sort of got you to figure it out yourself. And Ocarina of Time is a bit more. We will sort of lead you down the path. But as a kid, playing it for the first game, and that's why how they design these games, of course, for kids, is to we'll give you a guide along the way. So at first it's the owl for the start of the game, and then of course you get Navi as well, so that helps out. And of course, the little bit of trivia there, and this is what I love about Nintendo and their design is everything's got a purpose. And Navi, obviously, the short name for Navi was the full name is navigation. The whole point of Navi is to be a navigation in the game. So that was that, and that's brilliant. That's just the design of Nintendo. It's not necessarily about the story. It's about what cool gameplay elements can we chuck in, and that was it for me. Like, it wasn't necessarily about the story. That just was like the cherry on top. I think everything else was, the exploration side of it, and then having something to do when you get there. So there are exploration games out there which are fun, but sometimes they just don't really go anywhere. I think I'd be disappointed if this was just like a walking simulator or like a story-based game where you're just going through like that. I needed something to do, and the hack and slash, the combat was fun. The Z targeting was awesome. Like, that was the first thing I'd come across in a video game where you could lock onto your target, jump around them. They could swing at you. You could dodge to the side, and then you can attack them, and you can do your jump attacks and your backflips, and even with shooting, because of course that was sort of relatively new in 3D space as well. Like, you could lock on to your targets and shoot them with your arrows or your slingshot.
Yes, yeah.
And it was just a fun game to play, and it was always what's around the next corner, or what's always on the horizon, and I think at the core of Zelda, that's always kept that there in terms of the gameplay loop, is what's over there. Let's go and investigate, and the adventure sort of just unfolds there. So that's for me.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, go on.
I was sorry to interrupt. I was gonna say, you are right, because that does come through in Breath of the Wild. Yeah, like, many times I've caught myself out when playing it was you'd see like some little character or something going on a distance, like a little kerfuffle or like something, and you're like, what's going on over there? Like, nope, I have to head over here, like,
Yeah.
to finish this quest. Like, and then like you're a couple more steps, like, what is going on over there?
Yeah.
You know what? Fine, I'm just going to quickly take a detour, check it out,
Yep.
and then back onto the mission. And
Yep.
then you find out
3
there's
hours
this
later.
whole
Yeah.
3 hours later, this whole other
Yeah.
story, and
Yeah.
and no, it's funny that you say that, because I mean, Alundra, which came out in '97, so like a year earlier, is like a Link of the Past in that aspect. There is no navigation. You get kind of told by characters,
Yep.
kind of where to go next, or hinted to.
Yep.
But like any good RPG, it kind of has this one character who's a fortune teller, and you can like pay. I think it's like you can pay 5 coins um, and she'll give you kind of like I guess, a riddle with a bit more direction as to where you need to go.
Yep.
And then you can pay another 5 coins or another 10 coins, and she'll actually point it out on the map.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the game does come with a map, like, of the whole world, so you know
Yep.
where to go. You're like, oh, that's where I need to go to. So yeah, no, and look, I do have a fascination about Ocarina of Time due to, it's made an impact, right? It was the first foray into 3D Zelda. But also, it's one of those games where there is this like overarching world building story and structure to it, as well as like individual lives and things that are happening all together. So you kind of are living in this world. So yeah,
Yeah.
and it envelops you. It takes you in. And I know I've always been more about the story, and I guess you're really more about the gameplay in that aspect. But I have to say, it's one of those amazing things where a game is able to combine both and do it properly and do it good. Because
Yeah.
a lot of games are either great story, crappy gameplay, or great gameplay, crappy story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it is probably the first of the. I mean, yeah, Link to the Past, of course, had a story as well. It was sort of openish and loose in a way. And I mean, this is similar in terms of the end goal is you got to save Hyrule, save the princess from evil.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like Mario, for example, as well. But they did build it out here. Like, I'm currently looking on the screen at the royal family's tomb. So there's obviously, there's a graveyard here that they're going through, and that's just a little bit extra layer in there. They could have just been, graveyard or something like that. And it's which actually is when you're above it, it's just called graveyard. But you know what I mean? Like, there's some sort of something going on there. There's a lot of there's Hylian written on these blocks that he's climbing up and on the doors, and they did put a little bit more into it. But famously, Miyamoto and Aonuma have said that they didn't really think too hard about this sort of stuff. They just needed to gameplay, and they needed to do sort of beats, and they chuck sort of some of the stuff together. And but it works. Whatever they've done, like retrospectively, it's just it does drive you along, and you know you want to beat the big bad evil, and you've got all these cool little quests along the way to get there and build your power. And yeah, that's really what I love about that. But I won't go on further because I mean my next one's in the Zelda series too, and I could like go off on
Okay,
a
fair
tangent
enough.
there, which I'll probably come back to this. So I'd rather hear about your next one, which was, is it Pokemon Gold?
Yes. Well, yeah. Well said. So I guess going into depth, like I said, I'd gotten Pokemon Gold for my birthday because the goal was to get that, because it was the height of the Pokemon craze. We'd just finished, I guess, what, season 1, 2 of Pokemon, and we're now into Pokemon Johto stories. And I remember sort of playing it, and you know, that same sense that I got for adventure with Alundra. But more so, I guess, with this more personal, more individually, I guess, was the sense of setting off on this adventure for Pokemon. I mean, aside from one thing I've always enjoyed, in particular with games, is cutscenes. But cutscenes when they're done right.
Mm.
Um, to go off on a slight tangent before I dive into Pokemon Gold is a good cutscene kind of is engaging, and it tells part of the story, but it doesn't take up too much time. It doesn't take you away from the what you're currently playing. It adds
Mm.
to it, or it adds levity to a particular situation. Alondra is filled with tons of them, and Pokemon somewhat, which I did enjoy. So for example, I guess, and really from the little that I've played of Metal Gear, and it's been years. Actually, no, no. You know what? I will talk about one other game that sort of I kind of sat through as I watched one of my siblings play. Was Asura's Wrath.
Okay.
Asura's Wrath. That game is comprised of perhaps 90% cutscenes and
Yep.
quick
Yep.
time events.
Yeah.
I hated that bloody game. It took me
Yeah.
out of the story. The
Yeah.
story is some convoluted, or if it's, at the very least, if it's not convoluted, it's very mixed up on how it tells its story, and it's just cutscene after cutscene and quick time event, and I was just like, "What is this crap?"
Yeah.
Um, and it just took you out of it. It was just like, you know, half an hour cutscene, then 2 minute gameplay, then another half an hour cutscenes, and I
Yep.
think that's cutscene is done wrong.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, like, for example, some things in Alondra, or with Pokemon, you would, walk into a particular building or whatever, and then all of a sudden you would lose control of the character.
Mm.
It almost seems seamless,
Yep.
and then you see another character come in, or from off screen, or something happen, and you're like, oh, and your character
Yep.
would look around and be like, oh no, something's happening, and you're still engaged. And then all of a sudden it hands controls back to you immediately, and you have to either run away from something, or do something, or engage with somebody. To me, those are like cutscenes that are done really well. Um,
Yeah.
So I guess going back to the point with Pokemon Gold, it was very personable. I mean, the beginning, you would, like, I was ready to head out. I remember I was like, "Yep, I'm good to start my adventure. Yep, I've done all the preliminary. I've set up my time. I know how to use this. I know how to use the Pokédex. I know, cool. Let's walk out the door." Then your character stops, and your mum's like, "Oh, did I tell you about this?" And you're like, "Just let me go, woman." Um, and then, like, you can head out the Poké Center after you get your Pokemon, and you see this weirdo standing by one of the sides, and you're like, "What's all that about?"
What are you up to? Yeah.
Yeah, let me go talk to you.
Uh,
And yeah, and then I remember when we're out there, you're off on this adventure.
mm.
Um, and I guess naturally I'm a bit of a grinder, because
Yep.
Pokemon was one of those games that I grinded in quite a
Oh
lot.
yeah. Yep. That's pretty
So,
much part of the core gameplay in it.
yeah, like before I even got to, I think it was like I grinded so much that by the time I got to like the second gym, I really didn't have to power up.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
But and again, look, I know that's a bit of my fault with certain gameplay aspects, but
But it gave you that freedom, right? Like, it
yeah,
didn't
it did give
force
me
you
that
down
freedom.
something. You could just say, if you want to grind, go for it.
Exactly. And the same as when I first entered I think is it the Burnt Tower? I can't remember
Yep.
what name of the city. And you find the 3 legendary Pokemon and you see them come to life. Like, it's so primitive by today's standards.
Yeah, yeah.
It is
But it was
so
but it was so
like
capturing, wasn't it?
yeah, it was.
It
I
just, captured your imagination.
it really did like the through nostalgia glasses, the graphics look so much better than they probably were.
Mm,
And I mean, like I could make out the faces on certain characters. I'm like, and even like everything just suited so well.
mm.
Um, and so the starter I chose was Totodile,
Yep.
and since then I've been a water starter
Yeah,
fan.
nice.
I've always shall be, and love that Pokemon. I still have a soft spot for that Pokemon in my
So,
heart.
so, so was Gold your first Pokemon game?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So I started on Red and Blue. I think
Well, this is the
yours
funny
might
thing.
have been.
Through a lot of harassment from um my baby brother, who
Mm-hmm.
kept wanting to play and kept wanting, and I was like, no, I paid for this. This is mine. And my dad generally being like, nope, you should share with him. I'm like, it's my Game Boy. I paid for it. I was like,
Yeah.
Mum, I paid for it. This is my birthday money. Mum was like, well, technically he's right. He paid for it.
Yeah.
He ended up going out and getting my baby brother, his own very own Game Boy and his own version of Pokemon.
Suck up.
Yeah, and then yeah, exactly. And then my other brother ended up getting, I think, a Game Boy and blue. So ended up getting
Yep.
red, blue, and then I think they ended up getting yellow. So I
Yep.
did end up playing yellow.
Yep.
Was my next one, and then after yellow, I think that was it for me, really.
I
After
wonder if
that,
it was Yellow a disappointment after Gold? Because of course, spoiler alert for people who haven't played it. Of course, at the end of Gold and Silver, you get to go back through Kanto again.
Mhm.
Because I think it's Johto, isn't it? The
Yeah.
main province. Yeah. So you go back through what the first world in Red and Blue. So was it a bit of a disappointment going to Yellow from Gold?
Um, not so much, not so much,
Mm.
because I think blue I had no interest in.
Yep.
Blue I had no interest in. Or red, but yellow wasn't too bad because you got Pikachu and you got to have
Yep.
all 3 starters.
Yeah.
And also at that time I was learning about the internet, and one of the most amazing sites was CCC Cheats
Oh yeah.
or
Yep.
cheatcodes.com,
Yep. Yep.
and I learned how to duplicate stuff.
Yeah. Nice.
So I started duplicating a lot of the eggs and breeding, and so I ended up having all the starters.
Yeah. Love it.
um, but no, I don't know what put me on. Oh, I think it was because the next game came out on the Advanced, Game Boy Advanced, and I was like, well, I can't afford a Game Boy Advance. I could barely afford, Game Boy Color. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember mine was a lime green, and I just grabbed any I could. I was like, yep, give me it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the only one we have in stock. Yep, fine, give
That'll
me.
do. Don't care.
I'll do. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Um,
Ruby and Sapphire in Advance. I had those.
hmm which I
Um,
didn't get the opportunity to play, and it was always like, next birthday I'll get those. Next birthday I'll
yeah,
get those.
yeah.
Um, and and I have to say, sorry, excuse me, was the thing about aside from Kate going back through Kato,
Mm.
um, and seeing that whole other world, I was just amazed. I was like, oh my goodness, you know, there's 2 games in this. It's 2
Yeah,
worlds,
yeah.
and I was able to sort of play that aspect and everything. But I think the biggest shock came to me when I got to see Red from the first game,
Yeah, that's right. I
top Mount
forgot about
Silver,
that. God, yeah.
and he's standing there,
Yep.
and I know this sounds very childish. You've just bet what's it, the Elite Four.
Elite Four, yep.
Yep, just bet them. Just went through all that stuff.
Feeling pretty good.
Feeling
Yeah.
pretty good. I've
Beat.
outside that cave, I've been able to beat every Pokemon there, and in the cave, I've sort of grinded till I can't grind no more. You know,
Captured
and
legendaries. Who was
yeah,
the I can't remember who were the arch because it was Giovanni in that in the first game. I can't remember who was in that.
Giovanni was still in the second one,
Yeah,
so still
okay,
Team
yep.
Rocket.
Yep.
The legendaries for for this were really Entine, Suicune, a Squeeze something, and Raikou. But it was Ho-Oh and
Oh
Luigia.
yeah, yep, Lugia,
Yeah,
yep,
Lugia. Ended up catching all those.
yeah,
Oh,
nice.
and that was the other thing as well, actually, before I go on to Silver, was you had to be there on a certain type of day to catch Lapras.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yep.
they had night.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the first game? That might have been the first one. They did the
Day
night
night cycle?
catching. Yeah, day night
Yep.
stuff. Yeah, that's right. God, that was such a good game. Like thinking back, like I don't think there's been any other game that's had that big impact at the end of the game where it's like, all right, now you get to bat to Kanto. You're like, what the hell? That was mind blowing.
Exactly. That was amazing. I was like, oh, because I was
Yeah,
so upset when the game was over. I was like, oh,
yeah,
it's over. What can I do? I guess we can patch everything. And like,
yeah.
oh, I don't have, I've got no friends who've got silver, so I don't know.
Mm.
Um, and then yeah, and then I found that out, and it was just per chance because I hadn't read anything or done anything. And then I'm like, oh, I wonder what happens because I'm like, oh, I wonder if I fish near my hometown. And I was like, I wonder what happens if I swim over. I'll probably get like a Pokeball. And then I'm like, what? I was like, diddle-diddle-diddle.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, oh my god. Yeah.
um, so that was really amazing. It was awesome. And then yeah, I guess going back to the red, beating him, going up there, and then I remember being so hyped up. I'm like, oh, this is red. I'm taking out his first few Pokemon with one of mine. I'm like, all right, I'm good. Come on, to my own Pokemon. Come on, Tilda, you got this. You got this, big boy. And then he takes out his picture, of course, being water.
Yeah.
Like, two shocks, and I'm like, oh, this is the most damage anyone's ever done to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And out of pride, I'd be like, no, you're not gonna have a potion. You can beat him without a potion. And yeah, fair enough. I just barely did, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was one of those games where it's like, oh man, this you're proving my worth. Um, yeah, no, that to me was such an adventurous game. It was my personal adventure. It was my personal, um, sort of, I guess, journey. And
Yeah. So
yeah,
what
hmm
yeah, you mentioned then of course the advanced Game Boy Advance is out of reach, but then was that then you sort of just fell away from games? You didn't, is that why you didn't pick up any other Pokemon since, or did you
yeah, I
fall off
kind
them just because you just lost interest or what?
yeah, I really didn't pick up any other Pokemon. So, like I said, I kept my Game Boy Advance, my Game Boy Color,
Mm.
and I ended up having the camera. That
Oh
was
yeah, nice.
interesting.
Yeah, that's good fun.
Um,
Yeah.
we ended up getting, I think, Super Mario Brothers something or other, and then there was, I think, a Donkey Kong
Yeah,
game,
Donkey Kong
maybe,
Country might have been, I think that was
maybe,
on.
and then there was the Wario Land 3.
Oh, cool. I never played that. What was that one like?
Oh, that was convoluted because you know what? That actually might have been in a weird way to explain this, and only because I've been hearing it recently. It's a bit of a Metroidvania style game where you kind of go through each level, beat it. Only certain ones have a boss, I guess. But you beat it, you run through it, and then you kill, and then you either get a power up or learn a new ability,
Hmm.
and then you move on to another world, use that ability, and either learn, like, get a key or do something in that world that allows you to open up something in another world, and then you
Hmm.
sort of keep coming back. So there's a lot of backtracking,
Yeah,
and
okay.
eventually you meet certain bosses
Yep.
with either by opening up new paths or opening up or having new abilities to sort of do certain paths.
Very
So,
important question. Do you use your
hmm
farts in the game?
no, no, he
Oh,
doesn't.
boo.
But he does get drunk at one point, and he sort of like stumbles around.
That's great.
um, Oh, like he was very animated as a character, so I love that.
Yeah.
Um, no, unfortunately, I didn't pick up many other Game Boy games, really, because I had no income. Um,
Mm. Yeah,
and
well,
yeah,
because I dropped off Pokemon after I played Sapphire. I got that on Game Boy Advance. Loved that. That was fantastic. And then I got I got a DS, so I could have played the because I think it was like it might have gone something like Black and White or
sounds
Pearl.
about
Oh, I
right.
can't remember now. But anyway, I dropped off around about that time, and no particular reason. I just was playing other games, and then I came back to it recently with picked up Violet on the Switch because I'd heard, like, I sort of was waiting, and like the downside with Game Freak, so they're obviously they're still actually, I think they're still largely independent, but they've got like a partnership with Nintendo, so they still develop their own games. They don't do anything with Nintendo in terms of in-house development with Nintendo. And it really shows because the quality of their games as they've gotten on have been getting a bit worse in terms of, I suppose, the quality and maybe some of the gameplay loops and whatnot. They've stuck to the typical, fairly traditional formula, adding a few gimmicks here and there, but it hasn't really evolved too much. So I'd sort of, when I'd started to think about getting back into it, I was like, oh, maybe when Sword and Shield came out, I was like, maybe. And then they'd start experimenting with this wild area, which is basically an open area part where you can go out into the field and catch Pokemon and battle trainers. And I thought, oh, I reckon they're close to doing an open world Pokemon, because that's when I was thinking I'd get back into it, because that's what the ones on the Game Boy were. They were open world to me, which they really were. Like, there were
They were.
little mini loading screens, but they'll stuff all, like, you're still going through areas. And then yeah, of course, Violet and Scarlet, they said, yep, this is our first open world crack. And it got, got mixed reviews. Obviously, some people saying the performance was shoddy and terrible, but a lot of people saying it's a Pokemon game. And I was like, well, that's probably good enough for me. And my God, I loved, what did I say? Scarlet. I think I was Scarlet. Yeah. That fantastic. It brought back all the memories. It was absolutely, it deserves all the criticism for the performance. It was going down to like 20 frames and even lower in some
Oh
parts,
no.
but it still had that sense of adventure, that like when you're in gold, you're going out for the first time and doing your thing, getting your Pokemon, and you could see them out in the field, you could run up to them and you could throw your ball at them, and you'd start the battle. And oh God, it fulfilled all that stuff again. It kind of made me feel like a kid. It was still, a lot of it was taking me out of it, but it was it's amazing. Yeah, I love my time with it. I haven't gone back to it. Like, I haven't played through again. I just, because the game is huge, and I just there's enough there where it was like, I definitely feel, especially with the core gameplay loop of Pokemon, it started to get a little bit boring. I think I'm probably gonna, with this game series, unless there's like a really good one that comes out, I think I might just come back every now and again and play one, because it's like, you kind of know what you're getting into when you go into it. And I sort of was pushing towards the end to just finish it, because it was kind of like, oh well, I've seen everything, done everything. And same thing, like, you can grind in that game. The thing is with the modern Pokemons is you get all of your party gets automatic XP when you're fighting. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, that's cool and that's not cool, because it's cool because it means you don't have to spend as much time training up the rest of your party. But the downside was that was kind of the fun with the old games, because you might have some
You're
weaker
right.
ones, and like, I didn't grind, so I'd like get my main ones up, maybe my main 2 or 3, and then jump into these battles, and then that was a real challenge, because it was like, ooh, half my team's wiped out. I'm down to my proper ones, or maybe my top 3 been knocked out, and I'm struggling with the lower ones, and yeah.
So I always had a full party. I always had 6, and I was sorry excuse me so I always had a habit of having my main starter,
Mm.
and then like a few specialized ones, like a fire one, or a electricity one, or a ground one. But also at the same time, like, there would always be one space for, and I'm well, all right, I'm gonna say it, but what they call the TM bitch, which was which
Yep.
was the one where, cut, surf, all that sort of stuff. The one
Mm.
that could learn all that. So there was always
Absolutely,
that
I was
one
been
space
there.
for that one. Mhm.
Yep, same.
But no, you are right. For me, one of the enjoying parts of it was, and again, I try not to read too much, and again, mind you, I've gotten into somewhat of that bad habit now of reading reviews and watching reviews, and I try not to do it too much. But uh, the thing with Pokemon Gold was, I didn't know any of the Pokemon that I was sort of training up, because
Yep.
again, the anime hadn't caught up to a lot of um the I guess episodes where they would showcase a new Pokemon. And so half the fun for me was like, you'd catch a new Pokemon in a certain area, and then you'd go back to like a previous area to level it up.
Mm.
And so you'd grind a bit, and then you'd see what new attacks they would learn.
Yeah, part of
And
the
it took
fun.
me, yeah,
Yep.
and it took me a long time to learn that not all attacks are great. So you'd like get rid of
Yeah.
one attack, like like, I don't know, pound. You'd be like, oh,
AoE.
I don't
Yeah,
need pound. And then you have
yeah.
like whatever this attack is, called um, raging fierceness or something or other,
Mm.
right? There's something with a really cool name, and
Yep.
you'd look at it, and it all it does is like raises SP attack. You're like,
Yeah.
what the hell is that?
Yeah, yeah.
so
Gaim? What the heck is a
yeah,
gaim?
and so I learned very early on to save prior
Yeah,
to doing
cool.
to yeah. So then when I did do the change, I'd be like, no, that's a crappy move. Go
Oh,
back.
go back.
Yeah.
Love it.
But
Escape scumming before it was cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah, so I kind of half dropped off in it, and then I ended up years later when like again I'm like 20s, I ended up buying a DS and modifying it. That's all I'm gonna say. But I was
Okay.
able to I did somewhat touch on I think some games,
Yep.
but I was at that point I was kind of somewhat interested in what is it? Pokemon Dungeon, because it gives you a little
Yeah.
survey at the beginning to answer, and then it kind of matches you to a certain Pokemon.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, cool, this is kind of fun.
Mm.
Um, but I realized it's a dungeon crawler, and for what it's worth, I don't hate dungeon crawlers, but they
Mm.
are so repetitive.
Yeah.
Even if it's like what's the word? Um, procedurally generated.
Yep.
Even though it's procedurally generated, there's still a dungeon. You're still walking through one of these things, and one of the, one of the things I didn't like about it so much was it kind of is like when you're playing one of the mainstream Pokemon games and you go through a cave, like every 5 steps you get a Zubat attack.
Yeah.
It was a bit of that, and I was like, oh, I don't like this too much.
Yeah. Yep.
So one that I didn't play that apparently I know a few people played and had a great time with was Pokemon Snap. Um,
Yes. Yep.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard
Had
people
that.
love that quite a
Yep.
lot. The only time I came back to it was during Pokemon Go. But that was again when my son was born, and my wife, my amazing, incredible wife, she ended up playing it a lot to keep her sanity
Yeah.
during the baby years.
Love it.
So
Yep.
walking around, as well as during the COVID sort of outbreak, did that as well. She still plays it now. Mind you, she's not a Pokemon person, so she's not someone who grew up with
Yep.
the anime and the games,
Yep.
but she loves.
Does she give the Pokemons their own names?
No. Oh, see, this is the thing. I did the typical thing with my original turtle. I named it after my pet dog. Um, I had such an attachment to it.
Yeah.
And like I still do, and because of that Pokemon, I am such a water Pokemon starter fan.
Yep.
Um, that being said, some of the water starters I've looked at, I'm like, oh, really,
Yeah.
really? So every time a new one comes out, I'm like, please be a cool water, please be a cool water. And when I see either like that they give a cool fire starter, I'm like, ugh, stupid fire.
Yeah,
um,
the new one's got, I've forgotten its name already, but I went fire this
uh,
time. Called Crocodile
Coco,
Dude.
yeah, Coco
Yeah,
Fuego.
yeah, Fuku Quoko or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, and then the water one doesn't. Oh, sorry, the grass ones has been too bad. They've been giving grass ones better ones every single time, which I think is
yeah, I didn't
okay.
like that one. From the latest one. I liked the duck one. That's cool. And then yeah, I went the crocodile because he just looked cool, little dude.
Oh, he does look very cool. So so for me, yeah, I didn't touch it to Pokemon Go, and even then, I because it was during that period during 2016. It was sort of like, oh, you can't battle. Like they promised so much. It was like, oh, you can battle, you can do this, you can do that, and it wasn't. It was just a matter of throwing a Pokeball and catching it. And it's like, this isn't
Yeah,
how it is. This isn't how the game is meant to be.
yeah. Because I was all in. Like when they said there's a
Mm.
Pokemon where you can walk out in the real world, capture them, and battle them with others, went, I'm so in. This is awesome. And then I found out you just tap on the screen to do battling. I'm like, come on, man.
I mean,
That's not Pokemon.
now they've added those features.
Oh, have
That
they?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So now you have to like be a friend of a person, and you can battle.
oh,
Um, and yeah, there's like raids and stuff, and you don't have to be at the spot. You can remotely access one,
that's cool.
and
Yeah,
yeah, you can spin around and get stuff. But it is somewhat repetitive, unfortunately, in
yeah,
nature.
yep.
Um, but yeah, look, for me, Pokemon Gold, sitting in that Game Boy, in my room with that Game Boy Color,
Love that.
straining my eyes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was such a special time. It was such a journey because yeah, I would just keep going, and trying to find out more of, I guess, where the journey goes.
Yep.
So for me, it was again, like I said, I've got a couple of honorable mentions that I'll mention later, but
Mm.
I kept thinking about what games impacted me emotionally and what period in my life. And there are a lot that again I have an emotional attachment to, but not as significant as these sort of three. Um, so I will save my last one uh, till I hear your next one. So
Mm.
what about number two? So you said they're all the same franchise.
Yeah,
Can I
well,
better guess? Is it Wind Waker?
no. So we have
No,
talked about
okay.
that before, but I mean, when you talked about the three games, I was like, oh, it's so hard because I mean, I don't have too many. Like, I love all the games, but there's no real like if you talked about those emotional impacts, and there's not too many games that I could think of that have had those big moments in my life. Ocarina of Time was one. The next one's Breath of the Wild, and that's got a legitimate
Okay.
for me. Like, I'm a bit funny about this stuff. Like, games for me are games, and I love them all for different reasons. And there's not many I really connect too many with certain points in my life. I could probably think back and kind of get an idea of what I was doing, but um, Breath of the Wild for me is definitely one of them that was. So I think when I talked about Wind Waker, like Wind
Mm.
Waker at the time was sort of particularly the same mates who played Smash Brothers, where they poo-pooed it because it's like, oh, look at the kiddie graphics and look how childish it is and whatnot. And that didn't bother me. Like, I was like, I don't care. It's another Zelda game, and I absolutely loved it for that. And a part of me was like, I kind of liked it for that. Like, people weren't liking it. I'm like, good stuff is. We don't need you. It's Zelda. It's great. But for me, that sort of was a stepping stone to Breath of the Wild, of course, in terms of like the aesthetic it's got now. But Breath of the Wild. So the reason why this one's more of an emotional connection for me is because I'm not going to go into detail. You already know about it, Ivan, but I
Mm.
had a health problem in 2017, a bit of a scare, and I was at that time in my life where I was sort of feeling guilty about buying video games. Like, I should maybe do other things. I was still struggling with that challenge of I mentioned earlier in the podcast about spending my time and money on games when I could potentially be doing something else, and that's just a holdover from when I was a kid. But I was always still struggling with it. And when this health scare came through, it was around the time the Switch was announced and the new Zelda was announced. And I didn't get a Wii U, so I knew it was coming out on Wii U, the new Zelda. And
Mm.
I wasn't interested in buying that console. I was like, well, I must buy the new one. But I was always still umming and ahhing. I'm like, oh, like, you know what? I'm going through this bullshit. There's a potential that I may not have made it out. So it was like, well, we'll fucking might as well just buy it. So bought it, played, Breath of the Wild, completely floored by that opening of the coming out of the Shrine of Resurrection and having that great title card where you're looking over everything and thought, oh my God. And it's literally, you can just, off you go. Like, I followed because, I obviously want to kick off the story. So I did the whole speak to the old man and get an idea of what's going on. Plus you can't jump out of the first area, the Great Plateau, the tutorial area anyway. And that's good design again, because it's, it's taught you all the basics of what you need to do in the game. And, but it was just, again, that captured, that's been the first game since stuff like Ocarina of Time. And I don't even mean just Ocarina of Time, but games back then when I always felt like a kid, like Pokemon, playing Pokemon, going out on an adventure, playing Zelda, going out on an adventure, Metal Gear Solid, going out on an adventure. And I hadn't really captured that emotional resonance of having that, oh my God, anything's possible. And that was what Breath of the Wild was, like jumping off, especially after the Great Plateau and like landing down Kingdom of Hyrule. Hyrule pops up and you're like, oh my God, here we go. I can go anywhere and do anything. And it was just amazing. And yeah, got to say, at the end of that game, I wept. I cried because I was just like, couldn't believe this game exists. It's just like, they still got it. They've still got the magic. They can still do it. And it wasn't, I mean, it'd be easy thing for me to say because I'm a health scare that it would have been just because of that I was emotional, but it wasn't that. I think even if I got the game without the health scare, I still would have had the same reaction, I feel, because it's the first game since being a kid that really captured me. So
No,
it's like Tears of the Kingdom came out, and that's probably objectively, again, everything is subjective in a way, but it is a better game overall in terms of mechanics, in terms of scope. Sort of some of the gameplay elements have changed up, and quality of life improvements.
it's a
But
refinement.
yeah, it is a refinement. But Breath of the Wild will still have that number one. It's my favorite game of all time. It's my number one spot because it's captured those feelings again, and it'll always be special to me for that. So love
That's
it.
amazing. And just in the memory of that and everything, because again, we knew each other back then. Look, all I'm gonna say is, much love to your brother, and
Mm.
I'm just glad that we got through it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So
Appreciate your support. But yeah, it's
always, brother. But I gotta say, with Tears of the Kingdom, and sorry to interject here, was
mm,
the one thing. You know what I loved more, I guess, about it for me was the trailer, the
yeah. Oh
music.
god, yeah, yeah,
Oh goodness me, it floored
yeah,
me. I still get goosebumps. Just the whole, as he's falling down the do, and I was just like,
yeah,
that's magical. That is
yeah. Yep,
magic right there.
yep,
Do that. Do that
yeah,
all day, every day.
yep.
Um. So to our listeners, I was about to say readers there for a second, but to our listeners, uh, one thing that hopefully we'll be doing very soon is Adam and myself will be watching through Studio Ghibli's, however you want to pronounce it, Princess Mononoke.
mm,
He hasn't seen it. I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times, but it is something I'm dying to take my adoptive brother through. So hopefully it's going to be awesome. I
yeah,
don't know how I don't know how you're going to take it. It is a beautiful story. Is it emotional? Some would argue yes. I wouldn't say emotional in the sense that. Well, I didn't find it emotional in the sense that I would cry. It's just magical, whimsical, like all Studio Ghibli stories are.
yeah.
So I cannot wait to take you through that tale. It will be
Yeah,
magical.
I know that. Yeah, the obviously a lot of the inspirations for Breath of the Wild, and well, even before that, like Skyward Sword and Wind Waker, a lot of that came from Miyazaki's art style and some of the themes and whatnot as well. And I mean, that's what I think people had said to me is watching the trailer for Tears of the Kingdom. It might have been the very first one, the teaser trailer, where Link's got the gloom stuff coming out, attacking him. They were like, "Oh,
Mm,
that's very reminiscent of a scene in Princess Mononoke."
yes.
So I'm really keen to see it.
Absolutely. Look, it'll be fantastic. And I guess a question for you. I mean, because you know what, funnily unlocking a memory of uh Wind Waker. Um, I remember standing in a big W. I can't remember which one. So for any of our non-Australian listeners, a big W is one of our um uh, uh I guess general stores, if you will. They sort of
Yeah, retail, general
retail
retail.
stores, yeah, general
Yeah,
retail stores. They sell everything from like clothes to like toys and electronics, that sort of stuff. No food or anything like that, just that sort of other stuff. Um, they, I remember standing there, and they had, as you remember the old days, they used to display all the new consoles, and you could with
mm,
a game to test. And I
yep.
remember seeing, Link on the Red King.
Ah, the King of Red Lions.
King of Red Lions.
Yep.
Um, in the middle of the ocean, and I loved the graphics. It was just
Yeah.
so. I don't get why people turn around and criticize it. I know that all games will have their critiques and everything else, but to me, someone is standing away from the franchise. I can appreciate the previous one, but to me, it was a refinement of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. There was this almost comic
Mm,
adventure, like like a comic book made for kids of our age.
yeah.
The not the childish ones, and not the the late teens. It was like the pre-teen to early teens. Like it looked like a comic book about this kid on an adventure to me, and it's so artistic and beautiful, and it didn't look cheap in that aspect, like the graphics of the cartoon cell shaded stuff.
Well, it doesn't go out of style. Like, you look at that game now, and it's still gorgeous,
Yeah, it is.
And
You're
that's
absolutely right.
that's obviously why they've gone with the same thing with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, because I think they've found what they're after. And to me, it was a complete left turn. Like but yeah, it was just, when you say refinement, I disagree. It was a complete left turn. It was like, okay, this is something very different. But you look at Ocarina of Time, you're like, oh god, that looks like an old game. But you look at Wind Waker, you're like, oh, that looks awesome. It still looks, that was the first of the Zeldas. Although, yeah, maybe not. Maybe that's wrong. Let's been first. I mean, I'd see pixel style almost doesn't go out of fashion. Like, the pixels
Mm-mm.
in the indie games are huge at the moment and still going strong. And like Dave the Diver, of course, this year has been massive. And like
Well,
Link to the Past
somebody,
still looks great, I think.
yeah, well, somebody said pixel art is an art
Mm.
form,
Mm.
and yeah, and I agree. It can look fantastic. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're right. Look, the cell shading was just beautiful. It was such a beautiful doll. I remember, and the way, like that Nintendo polish, I guess you could call it. Before knowing what the term or phrase actually was,
Mm.
it was that the way the wind would blow and you would see the sails sort of move and
Yeah.
like those few little things, like it was so animated, and I fell in love with it.
Waves in the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and the expressiveness in the face. Like, that's the first time I've seen Link being so expressive, and all the other characters.
Oh
By the way,
yes, you're right. Yeah.
it's got my favorite version of Zelda in that. Good old Tetra. And yeah, her being Zelda, like real tenacious, tough pirate. I thought she's great. She's the best version. But yeah, that was mine. So that was Breath of the Wild. But yeah, I think how about we go to your next game, or your last game on this
Okay, my
journey?
third one, the third one, and all right, I'm gonna have I think a lot of listeners that might roll their eyes or
I think
sigh.
there'll be a lot of love for this because it's a big
Hmm.
game.
I hope so. It's actually Minecraft.
Yeah.
So now Minecraft came along during a period when I started watching a lot of YouTubers. Watching YouTube, I think, a bit more continuously. Now, for controversy's sake and non-controversy sake, I'm just going to keep it clean. A lot of the stuff I started watching was with the original Yogcast team,
Mm.
and I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to dive into any of the controversy that's happened since or whatever, just because I
Fair
don't
enough.
want to get into it.
Yep.
And personally, I'm no one to judge. I mean, there's a lot. So,
Mm.
but the original, I guess, sort of Simon and Lois, Zephos and or Blue Zephos, I think it was originally,
Mm.
and Honeydew. Just that comedy duo was really what captivated me.
Mm.
And finding a game, and something I've always really appreciated, is that you can literally do anything that you want. Like
Mm.
you can dig a humongous hole and or blow it up or build and whatnot. It was amazing. It was like I could let my creativity flow.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, okay, the base game was pretty fun, but then what really made me fall in love with the game, what really truly made me fall in love with the game, was the modding community. So this is another aspect of, I guess, where talking about emotional connection to games, um, communities do play a huge part in it. Um,
Yeah.
and before this, I wasn't really a PC gamer as it was. I was always console. Having dabbled here and there, but playing this game, which again, a lot of people look at me and go, "What? You're like how old and you're playing a game that's for kids?" I'm like, "Well, no, I play the modded stuff, you
Mm.
know, and it's got so much into it. It's an entirely different. It's so far removed from the original game. It's incredible,
So how
and
so? Like, because that's what I don't understand. Like, all I know is all that I've played a little bit and enough for me to go, oh, I'm not really keen, because it's the good old one from Rick and Morty. So you mine stuff to craft, and then you craft some stuff more to mine. Like, yep, that's the game. What is this made for orders? Hey, it's like, well, I'm telling you because I'm loving it.
there is that core element, which again I kind of somewhat love. I could be outing myself here.
Yeah.
um, but so with the modded stuff, they add originally it was just the overworld, and then the Nether got added. It's like, oh, okay, there's this other dimension you can go to. It's much
Yep.
more harsher. And then eventually the end was added.
Yep.
Okay, and then so it's this other dimension you can go to, and more villains got added and stuff. More stuff got added, and then eventually there's actual boss and an ending to this game. Oh wow, holy crap! This game actually has a conclusion. It's not just an open
Yeah.
do what you want all the time.
Yep.
So with the modded communities, and there's been amazing mods. I wish I could name the creators of them. I really could do, but they've added so much to the base game. So the base game doesn't have like a map or a list of stuff on how to make stuff. The original,
Mm.
I mean, now it does,
Mm.
but they've added maps so you don't lose your way. They've added one of the most handiest, I think, mods in the game is tombstones. So when you die in the original game or in the base game, your stuff kind of spills out of your body,
Yep.
and you kind of have to make your way back to it in like I think 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes
God.
before all your stuff despawns, and you
Jeez. And
lose
you
it
can
forever.
spawn over the other side of the map, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, God. Yeah.
And the other
Okay.
thing as well is you could also lose your stuff if it falls into lava,
Oof. Yep.
or it might just be a hard to reach place, right?
Yep.
So with gravestones or tombstones, there's a little grave, and it always keeps it in the most. So, for example, if you fall into lava, it'll keep it on land, not in the middle of lava, if
Nice.
it's possible. Like, I
Yep.
mean, if you jump into like a 10 by 10 pool of lava, it's not going to put it like on land. It'll put it like on top of the lava where you can get it.
Mm.
Um, like there's this sort of tomb style. There's variations on the mod, so it kind of keeps your stuff all together.
Yep.
So it's less cheaty than I think there's the option now to actually keep your inventory, even if you die, you respawn somebody else, but you'll have your inventory on you.
Mm.
So it's like less cheaty than that. It's more of a right. You have to make it your way back, but your stuff is safe. So
Yeah.
like like if you died to an enemy and there's like a bunch of enemies there, you can take the time to go make a sword, and and then make your way back there to
Yep.
actually dig it up or whatever. Along with a map, along with um JEI, which was NEI at one point, I think something else at one point, which is just enough items, which is a literal list of every mod that you've installed and all the items that come with that mod and how to create those items. Because one of the things was in the original base game is you couldn't remember the recipe, so you kind of had to like have two screens open, like a wiki and that to sort of like figure out how to make stuff. Because some of the
Yeah.
stuff it can be convoluted, like it's like
Yeah.
3-4 steps. Like you might need to create one item, then you use that item to create the other item, then to create that other item, you need another thing to create that other item.
Yep.
So, and some of the modded stuff is like that. And some of these mods are amazing. Some of the mods add entirely new dimensions. So there's, I think, like the Twilight. It's not the Twilight Zone. It's Twilight something or something or other, and it creates a portal on how to get there. And there's another mod that's uh, I forget the name of it, but it creates an entirely other. Someone created this entire other world, and it's an amazing mod. You plant a tree, a specific sapling,
Mm.
and then you teleport into this entire world with its own bosses, its own dungeons. It's like another whole game. Like
Yep.
the modding community is outstanding when it comes to Minecraft.
Yeah.
Like you can, like some of the mods and some of the other versions, you create guns, machine guns, like almost anything and everything that you want can be in the game.
That's
Like
awesome.
yeah, it's really incredible. And there are some technical stuff, so like engineering stuff. There's some chemical stuff. Like I mean, people use it to teach kids at school. I mean,
Yeah.
it, like some of the great. I'm playing through all the mods 9 at the moment, and I love it. I absolutely love it. There's even like a way to create your own little village and sort of manage that, where you're
Yep.
managing like your own NPCs and they do stuff for you. Like they'll either chop down trees or farm or dig,
Cool.
and there are precursors to that mod. Um, you get other weapons, more tools. other goals. There's so much has been added. Other mobs.
Yep.
And so from the base game, the original base game had like I think what 3, 4 mobs where you had like I think it was like what, the pig, the
Mm.
cow, the sheep, and I
Yep.
think maybe the chicken, and then you had like the spider, the skeleton, and the zombie and the creeper.
Yep.
Um, but then you get other mobs like what was it before the wandering traders that are now in the game? Because villages when villages were added, they really didn't do anything. They were just there.
Mm.
Um, but the modded community added villages with stuff to do, like you could trade with them, and then I think Mojang copied that, or they took that on board. Um, then I think they added horses before Mojang added horses. Um, like they added so much. It's like there are so many stuff that now the base game has that have taken from these communities, which is amazing. So yeah, for me, and again, like I said, with my honorable mentions, all these other games had these impact, but for me, it was, I guess, like you said, yeah, it was that sense of adventure, or that sense of I'm a kid again. I can do whatever I want. I can
Or
waste
just
hours.
sandbox. It's a
Yeah, it
classic,
was.
when people say sandbox, it gets a bit cliched at times, but this literally was like you're in a sandbox and let's build something today.
That's absolutely right. Yeah,
Uh,
like what am I going to build today? Like how
yeah.
am I going to build it?
So that was
Um,
that like from the prior to having the like the Ender Dragon, and the ending of the game for base Minecraft, was that purely it, just so you could log in with your mates and then just build whatever? Was that just the fun?
so unfortunately, I never got the opportunity to play it with mates because a lot of them,
Okay.
I came to it somewhat a little bit late. Um,
Yep.
because again, like I said, was never really into PC gaming. Um, and by the time I got a decent PC for it, my friends who I think had previously played it, they weren't into it, and I think they kind of were worried that I was going to troll too much, and I was like, which again, during that period, I was like, still I guess finding myself in a way. I was like, no, I'm maturing, I'm different. When I was mucking around with you guys, it was a whole different story. I actually wanted to have fun with this. And it was sort of like, oh, okay, they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to play, and they were kind of moving on to other stuff. So I was like, oh, okay then. So a lot of the stuff I kind of played by myself. I did join a few servers here and there, but it was like, um, I think I got a lot of enjoyment out of watching, like I said,
Mm.
the early days of the Yogcast, a lot of the stuff, which was very entertaining. Play through a lot of the stuff, and it was really funny, and it was enjoyable to sort of watch other people do it and then sort of try and mimic it myself.
Yep.
Sort of try and attempt some of their crazy contraptions or learn from them and learn how to build and learn how to do stuff and learn how certain things work.
Yep.
And even now, I've watched there are a few channels I watch, and mainly they are older guys, really, older people who are playing it and then doing stuff. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Or
Mm.
that's how that mod works, or that's how that works. Like, funnily enough, in All the Mods 9, they've actually got a Stargate mod.
Ha! That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, so it's amazing what they add into it. But yeah, I think that was for me that sense again of sort of that childish nature. Because I mean, I can waste 2, 3 hours sitting there, and again, potentially not doing anything, just literally just taking care of crops and like
Yep.
maintaining, sort of my inventory and doing stuff.
Yep.
It's and look, I love it. I love the fact that I'm able to do that. It's a bit of white noise for the brain,
It's
especially
funny.
now. Mhm.
I'd never thought, because like sometimes I sit here and I think I just want a game to just chill out and not do much in, and I can't believe I've never thought of Minecraft. And now you've just reminded me, like, why the hell haven't I tried Minecraft for this? Because I'm sitting here struggling. Like, it's cool hearing you talk about it when you get out of it, but I still sit here and going, what's the point? Like, I just don't. I don't really enjoy games where there's no point to it. Like, you're just doing
Mm.
stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's why I didn't like Animal Crossing in the end. I didn't like Stardew Valley. I tried that. I just don't see the point. Like, I want a goal. I want something to do.
Well,
Um,
well,
but
here's the
there's but with but with mine, like, there has been times, and it's not too often, where I'm tired at night. I've still got a bit of time before bed, and I'm like, I just want to muck around doing something and I don't really want to read, don't really watch something on TV, but I do want to play a game. And now I think I'm actually going to have to give Minecraft a go for that because it sounds like it's very chill and you can just sit there mucking around doing very tedious sort of stuff until I'm tired and ready to go to bed.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And to be honest, both Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing are even more structured in that aspect as opposed to Minecraft. The base game can get somewhat boring, I'll admit that, but the modded stuff is great because some of them, which now called kitchen sink mods, like all the mods 9, kind of give you like a book on how to follow like certain quests, and you do get rewarded, which is fantastic. But it's up to you if you follow it. Like you can decide to go do, let's say, one of the quests, which will require you to gather certain items, build certain things to get the end result, and then you get the quest done. You can tick it off and be like, yeah, cool, I can tick that off. I guess part of that, OCD is side of your brain, but it's
Mm.
also, like I said, that mental white noise where, you know what, and this is one of the other things as well. So the base game only, I think, has um, the occasional apple, which you can get from cutting trees, but you get wheat, beetroot, carrots, and potatoes, I think, are the main vegetables that you can get in the base game.
Mm.
Some of these other games, you can make Vegemite.
Haha, that's cool.
You can do all these things. And like, you can either travel the entire world to find the certain items, like certain seeds, or you can buy a market, or well, build a market to then buy the seeds, plant them, and sort of tend to your garden. And then if you just literally just your goal is to make Vegemite on toast, you can do that. Like you can go through the process of getting all those items ready. And due to the mods that are in there, it will actually tell you how to get to each step.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
there is that sort of mental white noise where you're kind of sitting there going, okay, I just want to make Vegemite on toast today. That's all I want to do. So I'm going to go seek out this and get this and prep this. Um, and then there's other stuff that's complex that you need to travel all three universes and more, or dimensions and more, and then dive into the deepest depths of the sea and dig to the base, to the bedrock of the world, to get all these items to create like the ultimate item of that particular mod pack. So there are mod packs that suit other stuff as well.
Mm.
Um, and there's stuff to automate, which is fantastic. So let's say you go, you know what? I don't want to keep fishing. This mods to do that for you. You can set up a fishing net and it'll do all the fishing for you. All you got to do is come collect the fish every so often, or you can have a character do it for you. Or one of the other fantastic mods is Vein Miner, which I love. I think they should just include that in the base model. So one of the things that I kind of grown tired of with the base game is chopping down trees, or actual digging or mining,
Mm.
because the base game you kind of mine one block at a time, and in order for you to, and that can take a while depending on the level of equipment you have.
Mm.
So kind of like to get the ultimate level of equipment with the ultimate enchants and the buffs, you, you can, it's almost like one click, it destroys one block. But
Yep.
that's kind of late game, really, if unless you're speed running through it. But with Vein Miner in the game, if you hold down the tilde key on your keyboard, it'll highlight up to 64 blocks of the selected block that you've chosen, and you can mine one block, and then it'll destroy the rest of the other blocks.
Mm.
So
Handy.
instead of like chopping a tree down one block at a time, just hold the tilde key and
Mm.
hit one thing, and it'll bring the whole tree down.
Yeah.
So there are those sort of quality of life elements to it as well. So it is one of those things. Like, I mean, I'd be happy to take you through like the game and everything, and I guess the process just to get you acquainted with it. And like
Mm.
again, I can leave a server on; it wouldn't be an issue. But it would be something like, it is white noise. It can be very much white noise,
Yeah.
where I do find that Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley can be somewhat of a collectathon.
Mm.
Minecraft isn't so much that. You kind of go after what you want.
Yeah.
Well, with Animal Crossing and I guess Stardew Valley, you can if you want to, but there are objectives in incentives for you to get everything. Whereas with Minecraft is, you know what? I don't want to follow this particular mod. I'll use this other mod to
Do what I want to do.
build. Yeah, like for
Yeah.
example, as power sources. One power source is an actual nuclear reactor. Another is solar panels. You can
Yeah,
choose which
cool.
power. Yeah, it's
Yeah, so
just
maybe
really
I
what
need
you
to
want to
look at
follow.
maybe I need to look into some mods, and I can ask you like sort of stuff that I can think of. I need to probably sit down and have a think about it a bit
Oh,
because,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, yeah, but no, that's awesome, man. Like it's one of those real relaxing switch off and play sort of games because
No
I don't think I've
cutscenes,
yeah,
none of it.
it's
You
just
just
gameplay.
dive in.
Yeah, you're just straight in.
Mm,
It's a game.
yeah, and so I guess that's my emotional attachment to it. And again, look, like I said, choosing this one, Minecraft, was kind of like I was umming and ahhing through a lot of the other games that I've played.
Yep.
And look, you know what? Maybe in a year's time, if we do this, if we come and revisit this, maybe I might have another separate three. Maybe I might not, to be honest. Um,
Yeah, well, that changes to it. I mean, we've only chosen three, right? Like, we could probably get emotional attachments to
many
those
more.
threads to many different games. I guess it just depends, and your definition of it could change because that was my like coming into this. That was my thought of the emotional connection is pinpointing it to some sort of thing in your life that's been happening, but that hasn't been the case here with Minecraft, for example, for yourself. It's
Yeah.
just been something you really enjoy and really connect to, and you get a lot of enjoyment out of looking at the community and the different mods and the videos and following along that way, and it just gives you a great joy. So
No, look, you've summarized literally what I wanted to say about it. Yeah, that's absolutely right. This is one of the games where it wasn't the base game itself that I fell in love with. I fell in love with the community, the and the entertainers of it.
And I got to
Like,
say, that's actually probably what I enjoy about it the most. Is I do watch the odd Minecraft thing here and there. It's normally like I built a calculator in Minecraft or something like that. And there's this dude, I don't know if you heard about him on Twitch called Forzen. Him
oh,
and
I've heard of
you might
him.
have, yeah, you might have heard of XQC, but him and XQC had like this stash of like speedrunning Minecraft. I don't know if it's base Minecraft. I don't know what version of it is, but it's basically doing a speed run on Minecraft, and they've been going back and forth trying to beat each other. And Forsen did it recently, and he got it at I can't remember what time it was, but he got a ridiculous time. And I was just really interested watching them and how they go about it because I have no idea what's going on. I'm like, this is crazy stuff they're doing, but it looks cool, and and it's just been fun watching that because I'll do that at times when I'm bored. Sometimes I'll chuck on a speed run. Like I've been doing that with Tears of the Kingdom, watching that sort of stuff, and it's been interesting.
Well, there is that aspect of it. It's funny you should say that because there is this. It's such a diverse game and such a diverse community due to the fact that you do have. So I think early in the mod community, some of them were maps. Is what I think was I think the earliest form of mods. So what they would create is like establish areas, and some of the earliest gameplay things would be either I think parkour where they would set up certain jumping platforms. So it's like basically a platform, turn Minecraft into a platformer, and you would get to an end goal, and then you would go onto another room that does the same thing. Escape rooms. Um, like there was some people tried to add story elements before there was a story to it. There's also drop maps, which are essentially um, they put you at world height or higher, and
Mm.
then you kind of have to fall through like a tunnel that has obstacles and or glide through it when the elytra was introduced. And one of the other things as well that they did was um, obviously speedrunning. Um, and the speedrunning aspect of it is essentially um, where you try and get to the end and defeat the Ender Dragon in the quickest time possible. Because now that the Ender Dragon exists, he's like the final boss, and like once you
Yeah,
kill him, like the credits roll.
yeah,
So the process of doing that is you need to, from the start, you need to um, basically get wood, get stone, to get iron, to be able to be able to dig up diamonds. So in that process, so getting the wood will allow you to break stone, to
mm.
then break It's on the stone is what can break iron, and only iron can break diamonds. So then you
Yep.
need the diamond to break obsidian, which is essentially the only thing that can break obsidian. To then go into the Nether to collect. What do you collect? Oh, netherite,
Yep.
which is the strongest item now. But before, you used to be able to go into the Nether to, I think, to collect stuff for potions
Yep.
to basically buff you up. Um, and you also need obsidian to create an enchantment table. So you create all that, create your armor, kind of buff yourself up, and then you find. I think you have to kill a certain amount of Endermen to find a stronghold with their eyes, because they'll um what's the word? You need the ender pearls and blaze rods, which then turn into blaze dust to combine those two, the ender eyes and blaze dust, to actually create ender eyes to be able to find the stronghold, and then fill the stronghold to then go to the end to then defeat the ender dragon. And that's
Jeez.
yeah. So that's sort of the progression of it. But a lot of these speedrunners, they sort of, and there is a lot of them have been found to be cheating. That you kind of need a certain, you need a certain world seed and like all the luck in the world, because it is all random, to be like,
Yep.
have to dig all this up, find them in treasure chests, and then basically, kind of do all the work for you before you can do it. So that's essentially the progression you would go to. Whereas modded Minecraft is less about that progression and really about, I guess, kind of in a weird way, building resources, building machinery, building automation, or just doing what you want, really. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess before I flip, flip it over to yourself. I was gonna say, I mean, I guess that's what my appreciation is for that game. It was the community. It's the mods. It's the entertainers. It's just that it's a chilled game. It's a game. No
Mm.
dialogue, no nothing.
Yep.
There's no cutscenes. You just dive into it. It's that instant hit of dopamine if you just want to take care of crops. If you
Yep.
want to, it's Lego. It's Lego building
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
the cleanup.
Virtual Lego. Yep.
Yeah, so it's anything and anything you need it to be and want it to be. So that's what I appreciate about it. And again, like I said, I was umming and ahhing a lot of it. And again, there are a lot of other games that I do love and appreciate and have made such a significant impact in my life. Um, but Minecraft, I have to say, is one I still sit through on a late night when I've had a rough day and I just want a quick hit of dopamine,
Yeah.
and build something. So yeah,
Right on. Minecraft.
um, yeah. I guess
Legendary.
flipping it over to you, man. Tell me, what's game number 3? I'm curious to know now.
Yeah, so number 3 is actually a little bit different, because I did say, I think at the start, that I was going to do pretty much everything from Zelda, but then I actually thought about recent games that actually captured me and surprised me. And you talk about that. Oh
Mm-hmm.
no, I've lost the thread. But anyway, it was basically in a similar vein to the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's actually Elden Ring, as
Ooh.
a game that made me. Again, the wonder of looking out over a cliff and realizing, holy hell, this game is huge, and then getting down to a lift that takes you underground and going, holy hell, this game is bigger than I thought, and then getting up to the next area and going, this game's huge. I just don't get how this thing exists. And Elden Ring's funny because you and I have talked about this before, and you love Dark Souls, of course, and talked about playing that with your brothers. And
Mm.
I I never really knew about FromSoft until, well, people went on about Dark Souls, and I I actually didn't really like the look of it. Like, it looked sort of grainy, muddy. I guess just the look. I was like, yeah, this looks a bit
Mm-hmm.
meh. But of course, talked to you, and I've heard from others saying, like, it's great, got great lore, it's got great boss design, and really challenging, and yada yada yada. And of course, I'd come from, as I've mentioned, talking about how much I love Zelda, like Zelda, just a hack and slash essentially compared to this.
Mm.
But then I got a copy of Dark Souls remastered on PC when it was on sale. I thought I'll pick it up. It's only $10, so I'll jump into that. And this is a few years ago, I probably played a couple of hours of it, and I can't quite remember what I got up to, but I got up to this part where I basically had some big dude with a big shield and a big spear, or a whole bunch of these other dudes. Might have been like, I can't quite remember now, but anyway, there was basically two paths I could go down, and each time I was getting my ass handed to me, and I'm like, from everyone, talking to yourself and others, like you just got to fight through it, push through. The whole reward is, understanding your enemy and yada yada yada. And I just wasn't having fun. I realized I was sitting there. I'm like, I'm just getting frustrated, and I'm trying, but I'm just not having fun. I don't really like the combat. This isn't good. So I just chucked it away, and that was it. Never went back to it. But it always annoyed me because I actually started getting into the art, the setting, the lore, and that. I was like, this is actually pretty cool. And I was just like, oh, this is frustrating though. I just know I don't like the game. And then sure enough, they announced this game called Elden Ring, and it was like, it's our first open world game. And I went, ooh, hello. So if it's open world, there's a good chance they're going to have a variety of enemies, and hopefully, they'll, if it's well designed, like, thinking, the one thing I was thinking back was like, it may not be, not to say well designed, but I mean more From Software designs very much, you need to learn these patterns to get it down to master it, and that's a part of the challenge is the game. That's the fun of it, is the challenge and overcoming that challenge. And I sort of thought, part of me was like, oh God, it's probably just going to be, everything's going to be hard. But a part of me was like, what if it isn't? What if they try and like baby step you in? Like they might go first, here's some tough ones, but then, well, let's just go around this corner and see if you can find someone's a bit easier. And thank God they did that. They do, I don't know if you've seen too much of it, but you starts off like every other Souls like game, as you first face the boss and he absolutely stomps you, and then you get sent back to your starting area, and then it's got like a tutorial cave that you go through, which I've really appreciated. You do get that in Dark Souls, the first Dark Souls, but it's not, I don't think it was very well done. It does to be fair, it does teach you the basics of the game, but it was too quick and too soon, and yeah, it was a bit of a hard onboarding. But I found with Elden Ring, it was really good. It was very much, here is an enemy, here's how you slice, here's how you attack, your light attack, here's your heavy attack, here's how you block, here's how you dodge, here's how you use your Estus Flask, which I think, what are they called in Dark Souls?
Estus Flask.
The same. Yeah, they might be called something different in this. I may have got that from Dark Souls, but yeah, here's how you heal. Here's the they called them in this. What is it? Sites of Grace, which were they just bonfires or campfires in Dark
bonfires
Souls?
in Dark Souls.
Yeah. So you learn all that, and I really appreciate that. I was like, great, that's good. And then, but still, classic From Software. The very first enemy you see when you come out of the Limgrave, the grave in Limgrave, is this massive tree sentinel. I'm like, well, I'll give it a crack. Oh man, flattened me, 2 seconds flat, just gone. I was like, all right, yeah, well, okay, that's here we go. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to go here, but I persisted. I wandered around, still found some tough enemies, got my ass handed to me. But then I finally came across some soldiers, and I could take them on. They were still tough. Like I couldn't just walk up to them and hack and slash. I still had to figure them out and do what I needed to do. But I just kept poking at the game through my journey. All right, I couldn't beat that one. Maybe I'm not strong enough yet. Let's go to this enemy, try this out. Yep, got that. Got some more stuff. Okay, I can upgrade. It's got that RPG element where you're upgrading your bits and pieces, and that was awesome. And then on top of that, it just had the classic discovery, like you get in a Zelda game. It was like, whoa, what's down here? Oh, hello. This goes into a dungeon. I'm like, oh, awesome. And what the hell's that? Oh my God. And then, in the dungeons themselves, they sort of had, they weren't puzzles, but they were sort of like blocked off areas that you need to go and find a lever to pull, basically. And usually before you get there was some sort of challenge in the way, whether it's enemies or like some sort of swamp that drains your life when you're going through it or something like that. And then, of course, you got the whimsical characters wandering around. So kind of near an area. I'm looking at the video at the moment where you're sort of close to this big jar that you talk to. I've forgotten his name.
Oh, yes, I know about the jar.
Yeah, he's cool. Very regal. And, oh, yes, I'm up for a good challenge. And I thought
I love those characters.
Yeah, that was really cool to me because it was like, here's this really dark, foreboding game, really serious, and all these ghouls, and it was real. And then he's got this like jolly jar, like there's a jar in the middle of this super serious game, and that made me laugh. And then, oh my God. And I mean, like I've been thinking about going back now and playing Dark Souls again because I've now on board and I feel like I'm pretty good with the game and the combat. I'm like, maybe I can actually now go back and really enjoy these games. So that's it takes a lot for a game to do that to me. And I mean, credit to FromSoft, because this is probably one of my top 5 games of all time, and I cannot wait for the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. I cannot wait for that. It's going to be so good.
No, that's brilliant. So Dark Vatier, is somebody I do listen to, and he goes through a lot of the lore and some of the story.
That's the
I
Aussie
would,
bloke, yeah, with a really nice voice, the ASMR style
I think
voice.
so. Yeah. Look, I
Yeah,
would say, look, watch some of his
yeah,
Elden Ring stuff.
I have. Yeah,
He,
he's brilliant.
oh, he's yeah, he is. He's genuinely
Yeah,
brilliant. Like, I
yeah.
mean, he wow. So slightly on a tangent on that. From Soft Games. Um, so it was my brother who ended up from his then girlfriend, now wife. My gorgeous and amazing sister-in-law ended up buying him a PS3 for his birthday one time, and I think he ended up getting the Demon Souls, which was the first, I guess, of the FromSoft games in that sort of, I guess, genre. I had been away from consoles and video games for quite a long time at that point. I was more busy half doing PC games, half sort of living my early 20s and corporate life, if you will. I was sort of, trying to make it big, trying to go out more, you know, date, I guess, and also have a bit of a social life.
Mm.
So, and in a very, I guess, ignorant way, I kind of try to put video games behind me, even though I had friends that kind of did a lot of computer PC LAN games. I try to put that behind me and be like, nope, you know what? I need to prepare myself for the future, houses and all that sort of stuff, and save money, and where am I going to go with my career? How am I going to improve myself? So I was away from it, and my middle brother, being the way he is, he's absolutely awesome, love him to death. He turned around and said, "Hey, do you want to have a go at this?" He goes, "You were awesome at video games. Why don't you have a shot at this?" And I was like, "Oh no, look, man, I haven't played in years." He goes, "No, I think I like it. Go ahead." And so, instead of choosing like a knight character, I chose, I think it was a wizard character
Yep.
who are basically glass cannons. And I was so used to hack and slash games where you go in and you do have some resilience. Even if you get hit by a certain character, you don't crumple,
Mm.
which is not the case with FromSoft games. They're very much built to a certain play style. So I played Demon Souls, and my wizard just crumpled. He was useless. He couldn't handle any weapons. Magic was like helpless, and there's what I didn't understand then was there were a lot of soft locks. So with Dark Souls, the soft lock is quite evident. And I guess in Demon Souls as well, it directs you where to go, and you can only really access one place. And then it kind of you know tells you to go down a certain path because the enemies are a lot weaker, as opposed to another path where the enemies are a lot stronger. And it's kind of meant to go, oh, okay, I'm not meant to attack them yet because I'm just not strong enough. I have to go down this path where they're weaker and I can actually beat them.
Yep.
So a lot of that I didn't understand, and I did watch my my middle brother play it, and he was really good. He was really good at it, and he loved the games. And he's seeing his love for it, and seeing this gritty story, which was kind of unfolded in pieces and through dialogue and through um, no like direct way, or sort of like you only catch glimpses of this story, that I kind of was like, oh wow, there's actually a lot more to this world. I actually want to know this dark gothic tragedy of a world. And so yeah, look, I kind of kept away from them for a while, and then I played Dark Souls. I kind of said, you know what, let me finally sit down and give it a shot. But again, I do have that habit where um I'm still that kid playing Pokemon Gold, where I'm grinding to like level
Yeah.
up, so I
Yep.
can easily take out the guy in front of me. Like I
Yep.
did, like no effort, just and these games aren't of that aspect. Like you can do that to an extent, but it is
Mm.
about a lot of trial and error. And there is that tagline. So Dark Souls' tagline was "Prepare to die,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and so there is, and there is that sort of there's this guy from Outside Extra, Luke Westaway, um, whose outlook really helped me understand these games quite a lot. Um, he said as he was teaching his co-host Ellen Rose to play the through the series for the first time. Honestly, just wow! I what he said is so inspiring. He turned around and said, um, as Ellen was dying and losing, she was getting frustrated, and he's like, "Brilliant, fantastic! You've now learned that that's that pattern, or that's what's going to happen next. So you can now come back at this with a different view on how you're going to take him on." It's like that's cool. All this is a learning experience. Just his utter positivity
Mm,
and his mindset of it all was so refreshing. It was
mm,
genuinely like it was an epiphany. It was an epiphany to actually watch that man
yeah.
sort of play or coach Ellen through that. So he was brilliant. And yeah, I've sort of kept tabs loosely on FromSoft games, like so after the Dark Souls came the Bloodborne, and they did tweak it here and there. So Dark Souls, and again, as much as I love the game, it did have a lot of cheap depth and a lot of bosses that were very hard to sort of kill. Um, and there was a lot of tricking you in it. So when Bloodborne, and it was very, sorry, let me going back to Dark Souls. It was very, and in a way, Demon Souls as well. It's very sort of, I can't hit you more than like a certain amount of times. I have to sort of trade blows with you. I'm constantly
Mm,
trading blows. Yeah, stepping back, reassessing, then attacking with an opening. When Bloodborne came about, you were kind of rewarded to jump into the fray. You were rewarded to attack first, to do more killing, do more of the offense as opposed to the defense or the parrying, um, which a lot of uh, I guess from soft players were like, oh wow, this is different. This is refreshing. Um, Again, which is something they changed up in that series, and then in the Sekiro series, it was changed up, or game, it was changed up again because now there's a bit of stealth involved. There's a
yep.
bit of timing. There's a bit more nuance in it.
Mm,
Um, and with Elden Ring, they've sort of taken the best of all those games and sort of joined them all together and sort of given you this, not necessarily a magnum opus, but this um lesson in everything they've learned throughout their history of games.
mm.
And to be honest, they're just getting better. They're just getting better. I'd be interested to play Armored Core.
Yeah, same.
Because I did play some of the original stuff early on.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yep.
it is something. And like I said to my brother, I think it was a while ago, when they did the Demon Souls remastered, I almost cried at the trailer or watching some of the playthrough because
Oh God, yeah, that looks gorgeous, doesn't it?
it does. But the weird thing is, to me, um, and I guess half hijacking your third emotional connection to this game
Yep.
and half hijacking it was
Yep.
I didn't necessarily play Demon Souls as much as I watched my brother play it. I was more interested in
Yeah.
watching him play in
Yep.
one of these. It's really odd in that aspect. Watching middle brother play, and he was really good at it, and he was going through the story, and I was just sort of curious, um, sort of sticking my head in watching the story unfold. But to me, all those areas and everything were so beautiful, were so they were dark and gothic, but like everything looked really cool. And then
Mm,
when I watched the I think the PS5 release of the remastered edition,
mm.
like I said, I almost cried because I saw the comparison. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that's not how it looked like in my head. It looked like the new version. It looked as good as that. It
Oh,
looked
right.
so
Yeah.
yeah. Because I remember it through those nostalgic lenses, being
Yeah.
as beautiful as what the HD remake was.
So yeah, it
So
did really stand up to what you think it'd look like, the
yeah,
remake
but
or the remaster, whatever they call it.
oh no
Yeah.
no, the remaster looked fantastic. But I was gonna say that the original to me looked like the remaster.
Oh,
in
I
my
see what you
mind.
mean. Okay, got you.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
in my
Yep.
mind, I had that image of those, and again, it was like the PS3, and it looked so good and it looked so amazing.
Mm,
And now like PS5, it's like, oh wow, holy crap,
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's Blue Point Games who've done that, and they did. Oh, I might get this wrong, but I think Blue Point also did the remaster for Shadow of the Colossus. And I went through that when that came out because that's probably if we're talking about like we're probably moving on now to the honorable mentions.
yeah,
But
let's dive into it. Yeah, no,
yeah,
please.
let's do that. Yeah, so that one's probably for me is one to call out is Shadow of the Colossus. Such uh, a very different game for the PlayStation 2 back then, and any sort of game I've played, it was so dramatic and it was an epic tale. It wasn't necessarily adventure. It kind of was in a way, but it just felt like you were playing a movie in a way, and it was all unfolding behind you. And I mean, you had these massive behemoths, like the colossi that you take on, and it was just like, oh my god, like this is ridiculous. And that was the game. Like I kind of at first I was a bit bummed that you didn't have stuff to do in between. Like I was hoping for a Zelda-ish like a thing where you're going through
Hmm.
dungeons and fighting enemies and mini bosses, but no, when I realized what it was, like, this is fine. This is incredible. I'm loving this. So, and I think I'm hoping Blue Point are going to be doing. They're working on another remaster. I have a feeling they announced that they're working on a new IP. Like they're going to do their own game, which would be still cool. But,
Oh, it'd
geez,
be
I mean that
interesting.
they've done the Demon Souls remake and they've done Shadow of the Colossus. I'm like, oh god, yes, please bring more of those classics back to life.
No, definitely, we need a lot back, a lot. Um, I guess one of my honorable mentions, and I'm gonna go back now, back. There was this one game called Other Worlds, if I'm not mistaken, Other Worlds or Two
Mm,
Worlds.
yeah,
Give me a second so I can actually bring it up.
yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't ring a bell. Was it on a which console was it on?
It was on Sega Mega Drive,
Okay.
not on Other World. Might be um, Two Worlds, I think.
Was it a RPG or a
No, it was a shoot 'em up. It was a shoot 'em up. Um, where was it Two Worlds, Other World? Um, mm, well, yeah, it was this, yeah, it was a shoot 'em up game where you play as like these two buffed army dudes, and you're kind of floating through everything. Where here we go. So I've forgotten more. It was these two like army dudes, and you're kind of like floating through these worlds, and you're shooting like all these alien creatures. And it has this weird element where you kind of spin, if you will. Um, so the directional buttons move you, so up and down move you up and down on the page.
mm,
Um, I think back and forth, moving forward and back on the screen. And I think one of them, either the A or the C button on the Sega, would move your character clockwise or anti-clockwise.
yep,
And I think B was just shooting.
yep,
So the whole premise of it was like you go through these stages and you defeat these enemies, but you collect these blue coins, and these coins have such a unique look to them. And because like every stage has like their own store. And you buy power ups like per se, it's like armor, because you guys start off topless, and if you buy
mm,
armor, it's like it looks like the armor that's on the box cover.
yep,
Um, so the reason this game had such a such an I guess an emotional attachment to me was because I used to play this with my middle brother.
yep,
Um, yeah, whenever parents were like entertaining other parents, when like uncles or aunties would come over and they'd be talking, we'd sneak off and play video games, and me and my middle brother Gus would play this, and the thing is we'd clock this game so many times, but we'd come back to it because it's such a comforting game.
yeah,
I mean, and I remember some of the artwork was kind of trippy, but at the same time super really cool.
yeah,
And like, because like there's this weird like Egyptian stage. We've got these like pharaoh heads heading to you, and then like the levels kind of like flow down, and then like because it starts off like bricks and then goes into sand bricks, and then it somehow goes into like this weird spaghetti background. It's the best way I could describe it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's one with like I've got let's have a look. See,
Having a look through on a video.
yeah, yeah. Like there's a spaghetti like sort of level, and it's just oh yeah, I just found a picture of it, and I'm just like, what is that background? And you fight a sphinx as one of the enemies. I
Yep.
think he's a boss, but then there's also like this big other like
Is it a
godlike bud
guy?
boss.
Yeah, big. He's big. I'm looking at a thing though. He's a boss fight, and he's got these hands that are coming out from the side. He's
Yep,
massive in the background, shooting from his eyes now.
yep.
It looks cool.
It was such a great game. So I've got a great measure, and I used to have a great time playing with my brother on that. Um, because again, my middle brother was so great at sort of being my second player. To a lot of games. Like I remember Sonic 2, he would be Tails.
Yep.
So I guess the plight of the younger brother always has to be the second player. um, so this game, Forgotten Worlds, is one of those ones where I had such a great sort of, I guess, memory of it. Because of course, when I wasn't playing it with my middle brother, I'd play it with my dad, and I would be second player. Obviously, he'd be first player.
Yep.
Um, So yeah, no, this is one of the fun ones. And again, like I said, honorable mention to this one due to the fact that it was I don't
Great memory,
know,
brother.
yeah, it was just a great game. Like playing with my bro
Yeah.
and enjoying it, just sitting there, shooting everything in sight. Yeah, like a love for a shoot 'em up.
Yep. So probably my other one, and I might just do one more. There's so many more we could go on about, but
Yes.
one for me would be Transport Tycoon. So I remember going over to my neighbours
Mm.
who I'm still, well, they're not there anymore, but they had a PC there with this game Transport Tycoon, and I'd never played it before, never heard about it. But again, same thing, the parents are whining and dining and whatnot, and they said, "Oh, you can go play at the computer, play what you want." And I think at the
Mm.
time, one of the neighbor's younger brothers, he was probably about 10 years older than I was, but he said, "Oh, I'll show you this game," and um, yeah, he showed me Transport Tycoon, and my God, I was hooked. It's
That's
obviously
brilliant.
akin to something like Sim City, but you're just building out your transport empire. So it's the isometric view, it's grid based. You build out things like bus stops, and then trains, planes, ships, that sort of thing. You can transport cargo and passengers. You build out you can build everything out, so it's not just putting down like for example the train station, which we're seeing on the video at the moment, but you can build out where the depot is. You can put the different lines in if you want to save money. If you're going for a particular challenge, you can do like a lot of train lines do at the moment, whereas they'll have one line to suit many trains, but you can have like it split off so they can stop. You can put up the lights that controls when the trains can come and go. And I think my favorite part of this was watching the towns grow. So you'd build everything
Oh
out.
yeah.
So something like SimCity, you're building out the city, of course, but I kind of like watching the towns grow in this game, but due to the impact you've had with the transport network. So you just get populations growing, and because the industries are doing really well, you got to try and make all the passengers happy, and you've got that to report on. You've got your costs and your income and whatnot. And I used to cheese it a lot because it was just more fun just sort of building and seeing that sort of thing go out. But I did a few of the challenges here and there. There is sort of like a campaign that you can go through with different scenarios. But my God, I come back to this every now and again. I've recently got one which it hasn't really clicked with me, but Transport Fever 2, because I've been thinking like, surely there's a modern game that's done
Yeah.
this. And like I've played after this, he released one called Locomotion, and that was really good too. Did enjoy that. Probably didn't as much just because I sort of fell away from that as I got a bit older, but that was really good. That was a spiritual sequel to Transport Tycoon by the same creator. And then I tried, there's a couple here and there, but they just never really hit. And then Transport Fever 2 has probably been the closest, but even still, it doesn't have as many features as you get in Transport Tycoon. And then, of course, you may have heard of Transport Tycoon Deluxe. So the community's
Yes,
been building out. You talk about Minecraft communities. There's a huge community with mods and whatnot for this game, and that's blown my mind. And that
that's
that game
amazing.
just that game lives on today. There's multiplayer events and things like that going on. It's got a really good. It's not huge, like you're not talking like Call of Duty levels and Minecraft
Mm.
levels, but it's still there's a very passionate, devout fandom there, and that they're the kind of that remind me of just your board game nerds, or things like your
Yeah,
Warcraft. Is it Warcraft and things like no, not Warcraft. I'm thinking of
Warhammer.
Warhammer. That's it. Yeah, that sort of stuff. Well, board game enthusiasts, it's the same sort of thing. Like it's the real niche nerds that still play this, and maybe if things worked out differently with other games, I'd probably still be playing it and part of that community. But I love that exists. That brings me fond memories. This game, really loved it.
No, that's brilliant because you actually answered the question I was going to ask. Have you gone back to it? But yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, I really, you're right. I really appreciate that. It's those communities, people who love these games as much as you love them, and you're able to go, hey guys, do you remember this? And there is somebody out there going, yeah, I do actually. Is it impacted me as much as it impacted you.
Mm,
Let's talk about it. Let's share in our love for it.
mm. Yeah,
And
it's
yeah,
amazing.
I'm looking at pictures at it. It looks really awesome. It really does.
Yeah, it's still got
Um,
a bit of a charm.
oh geez, you're right. Look, I could go on with honorable mentions. Um, like the Sonic series, but I'll save that for maybe another day. The Sonic stuff. Um,
Yeah.
the Altered Beast was a fun one.
Oh
Mortal
yeah.
Kombat, definitely Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
Um, but I guess one of the other ones that I do want to sort of talk about. I mean, going down, I guess that whole nostalgia stream is the Strike series.
The
Strike series.
was it
Um,
fighting games?
no, this is a helicopter game actually. Um,
Oh,
let me just send you a link. Um,
so,
it's so the three that were on the Mega Drive that sort of, and really a lot of it was really played more by my dad. Even though I remember sitting there and watching, we did a lot of watching, and I loved these games, and to an extent, I later ended up playing Army Men Airstrike. Do you remember the Army Men PS1 sort of games?
no, I don't think I ever played
No,
those. No.
which were like the green army toy soldiers. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So one of them was I
Oh
think
no,
like
I have. God, this has unlocked a memory. Yes, I have played one of these games.
yeah. So I ended up playing the what was it the I think there's an airstrike one. There's got to be an airstrike one. We ended up getting a few of them, and again they had great humor, great humor.
Yep.
Um, Team Assault. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's airstrike or something along those lines. I remember airstrike.
Desert Strike,
Air attack. Air attack.
Air Attack. Oh yep.
Yeah, so Air Attack was the ones that we ended up playing later, were just as good, were really fun, which were in the vein of this sort of strike stuff. So the ones we played and the ones we had on Sega Mega Drive were Desert Strike, Jungle Strike, and Urban Strike. I ended
Mm.
up, when I found out later, long time ago later, and I had, again, at this point I was making a little bit of money, um, I ended up finding Nuclear Strike, and I remembered like sort of the memories, so I tried to recapture that and sort of handed it over to my dad and was like, "Hey, do you remember this?" But at that point, I think my dad was sort of like a little bit stepping away from video games.
Yep.
Even though, mind you, he might have been, yeah, he was not much older than I am now, to be honest. At that
Ah.
point, I would have maybe been what 15. He might have would have been 30 something,
Yep.
like maybe 37, 36, something like that.
Yep.
Um, so he he was kind of stepping away from like these 3D games because he was very much of the sort of joystick era of video games where
Mm.
3D is a bit too much for him. So he was just like, oh,
Real
I
old
don't
school.
understand. Yeah,
Real gamer. True gamer.
yeah. So like he loved those, and the thing about these there's strike games that was so awesome about them was um the view, the isometric, and the view of them. They look so plain looking at them, but you got these really cool helicopters, and I learned to love
Yeah.
helicopters because of it.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm no um, expert on the subject, but they look so cool. And you would pick up stuff, and you would like you would land in certain areas. So people would board your helicopter, and you have to get them to safety. And there were like so many missions you had to do like on each map, and it was so cool. It was just so much fun.
It's
Um,
I love the movement of the chopper. Like I'm watching the video watching at the
mm,
moment is Desert Strike, and this is definitely the one that I've played a bit of. Can't remember
I-
where, but yeah, I do remember playing this, and I remember the chopper felt really good to maneuver.
yes, there was weight to it. There was actually
Yeah.
like yeah, some weight to it, and yeah. So and I guess in a weird way, my unlocking another memory. Again, not to go too much off on a tangent. I guess the other game that my sort of dad sort of half played was in the Command and Conquer series, which he fell in love with, and I somewhat fell in love with again, through proxy. Um, not that I did play much of it when he was playing it.
Mm.
My middle brother did play a lot of it and loved it. And he sort of went on to play the Age of Empire series, and he loved it. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I guess there was this aspect of it which I enjoyed as well, and in the Command and Conquer, I later came to love, was this isometric view, which I genuinely learned to love this art style, and it I don't know about you, but to me, it looked so beautiful. It looked so cool. Um, like the artwork of these helicopters was so cool. The planes were so cool. Everything was just so well done. I mean, sure, I look at it now and I look, oh, I'm looking at a picture of one of the ones in Urban Strike where the um the White House is there, and it looks so simplistic and barren. But it it to me it was just brilliant.
Yeah, well, you might be interested. So this is I just basically did a YouTube search for
Yeah,
the I did Strike Game series from that link that you sent me, and it's come up with this complete history of it. And I might have to watch this later because it looks really good. Like they've put a
yeah.
lot of effort into this video, and like
I've,
they
I've,
watched
yeah,
when you're talking before about the artwork and that they showed you they ported this or they did different versions of it on Game Gear and on Game Boy, and it still looked really good on those too.
that's
They
amazing.
they really nailed the art design with this game, and yeah, God, what a classic.
You know,
Well,
it is. Yeah, I was
I
gonna
think we
say.
might wrap it up there. It's getting a bit late, but I've really enjoyed having this chat with you, Ivan. And look, you mentioned
Likewise, brother.
you touched on Sonic. We're going to be going through some of the games in the Sonic series
Mm-hmm.
for another podcast later on. We obviously might take a bit of time because we're going to go through a few of the games, but we will be back with another episode. Not sure when and what it's going to be about, but that's a part of the surprise for us and for you guys. Really appreciate you tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to hear more. And we will be back for another episode in due course. Until then, have a good night and thanks for being here, Ivan. Good to chat to you.
Pleasure, Adam. And thanks to our listeners. Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Bye.